Minute. All right, if everyone would like to have a seat, we'll get the meeting started. Call the meeting to order. If you would all stand for the pledge, please, and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may all be seated. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting of the City Council members. Members of the public are welcome to speak on any topic, whether it is on tonight's agenda or any issue that is important to you. Each person that wishes to speak should complete a speaker card, which are located near the glass doors, and submit it ahead of time to the city clerk. After you have been recognized to speak, please use the microphone at the podium and clearly state your name and address for the record. Please address all your comments to the City Council rather than individual members. Direct all questions to the chair. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. All right, our first item is new employee introductions. Chief Vesta.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Pleased tonight to introduce 5 new members of the police department. I'll start from the left. So Ray Riveros, he joined us. He's currently in field training phase with an FTO. Projected release would be in January. Doing a great job. He has previously he was a school teacher and counselor, and also has some technical analysis work that he did with the FBI in the past. So doing a great job out there, and looking at January release as a solo patrol officer. Next to him is Josh Immel. Josh joined us in January of 2025, completed the academy in June, and he did his field training, and he is now released solo on his own. So he grew up in the Melbourne area, and he also has family that they're current law enforcement, so it runs in the family there. So next to him is Al Burtage. Al also is currently in field training with a field training officer, with projected to be on his own in January. Al has a variety of career experiences. He also served as a federal air marshal for a period of time too. So glad to have his experience and expertise on the street. Scott Chrissy, you've seen him before. He joined us as a PSA over a year ago. We thought he had potential to be a good police officer, and he really blossomed as a PSA, and we gave him an opportunity as a police officer. And he completed the academy, and he's currently in field training, again, also projected to be out in January on his own. And then finally is Stephen King. So Steve joins us. He's in his encore career. He served with BCFR as a paramedic for many years, and he's served also as a reserve for our agency, volunteering hours since 2016. He completed the academy and left the fire service, and now he is full-time with us, and he's also been released on his own to solo patrol. So 5 wonderful additions to the agency. We're glad we don't always bring them up right when they first get hired, because it's a long process to get through the academy and through training. But then when they approach the end of that, we want to make sure and introduce them to you. So I'll pass the mic down if they could all just say a quick hello, if you don't mind.
Please.
Alrighty, Officer Riveros, thank you for having me. Just real quickly, I just want to thank you all just for this opportunity. Chief, thank you so much. Coming from Tampa, Florida, really excited to serve the community here in the city of West Melbourne. And I guess I will see you all out on the road. Thanks.
Officer Immel, it's nice to meet you guys. I appreciate you guys for giving me this opportunity. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to get back to a community that I grew up in and around.
Officer L. Burdage. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the chief. Excited for this great opportunity for me and my family. And I'm really glad to be here with these guys. This is a true honor. Thank you very much.
Officer Chrissy, growing up in Palm Bay, I spent a lot of time in West Melbourne playing at Rhodes Park, so it was fun to be PSA first, and I was really grateful for the opportunity to become a police officer and serve this community. I appreciate the opportunity that you've extended to me and that the city has extended to me as well. Thank you.
Officer King, Chief is correct. I spent 26 years with BCFR, served as a medic on the SRT team here since 2016. Was time to go from BCFR and found a new career. I appreciate the opportunity. It took a long time to get here, but we're here and we'll retire from another agency.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, let's grab a photo.
Welcome to all of you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, our next item, there are no modifications to the agenda. We'll open public hearings. Are there any speaker cards on this next item? No. And this will require this is a quasi-judicial. Are there any disclosures?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you very much for the opportunity to remind you that whenever we have a quasi-judicial hearing, you are required to publicly disclose any communications you've had outside of those with city staff and the materials that are presented to you. So if you have any public disclosures to make, please do so at this time.
No one? Okay. All right, we'll go with the first thing then. Christy, thank you. Amend the future land use designation. There you go.
Okay, as we've done in the past, we're going to present agenda items 5A and 5B together, but we ask that you make separate motions. Each action is an ordinance, so that's why you have to make a separate motion on each of the ordinances so that they can stand on their own. And I wanted to apologize. I realize that there are several typos of calling Heritage Oaks Boulevard Heritage Lakes Boulevard. I don't know why that happened, but we'll correct it for the second reading. All right, so the city attorney already went through the quasi-judicial disclosures, and then I wanted to let you know that we do have the applicant here. They do want to get up and answer any questions that you might have about this project. So the proposal is that CEG, Jake Wise, is representing a company, S&A Minton Road Corporation, that owns it. And there is a buyer called Ocean Crest that wants to build a nursing home. The site is a little bit over 6 acres, and that's at the northeast corner of Minton Road and Heritage Oaks Boulevard. So that's the aerial on the aerial that shows up in sort of that yellow rectangle. As many of you know, when you drive by, it's vacant. The future land use for that vacant property as it stands now is commercial, and the zoning currently is commercial parkway. So what they're requesting under agenda item 5A with a staff report is to go from that commercial future land use, and that's indicated on the left-hand side of the screen, to that grayish color that shows up on the right-hand side of the screen. So a good indication that you need to go through an amendment is if you're changing colors on the map, which they would need to do in order to have this nursing home. So the nursing home by itself is not allowed in the commercial future land use designation. As we do with all projects that come before staff and you all in the Planning and Zoning Board, we do some analysis, and some of that involves the surrounding future land use. We do have some institutional uses to the north. We have some potential commercial uses to the south, even though it's not developed. And you do have some residential to the east. The comprehensive plan review also has us analyzing the maximum infrastructure and service impacts and who's going to be providing those services. And water and sewer, we say, is us. The drainage, it's the on-site storage of the runoff from the roofs and the sidewalks and the pavement, et cetera. And solid waste is waste management. This photo is just to show you that vacant field, so that's looking north from Heritage Oaks. Another thing to consider is that under commercial future land use, you could have potentially sort of a small shopping center of 133,000 square feet. Even though under institutional, you could have slightly more square footage in terms of a footprint of a building. You really, if you look at the types of uses you could have on a commercial versus institutional, there would more than likely be a decrease in the trips. AADT stands for average daily trips. The public safety, sometimes this is sort of part of the analysis, is that fire protection continues to be Brevard County, and police protection would be obviously West Melbourne. We look at something called our goals, objectives, and policies, and so that acronym FLU stands for future land use. So that's the chapter out of the comprehensive plan, and there's specifications for each of the land uses, in this case the institutional, and we have our commentary about how, this being designated institutional and then having a use to serve, sort of the elderly population or those who, have other reasons to be in that facility is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We talked a little bit about public facilities. That's also sort of a measure that we have from the comprehensive plan about any time somebody wants to change a land use. And then there is an entire chapter, we've gone over this before, but many of the citizens don't realize that all cities have a private property rights element or chapter in their comprehensive plan that the state of Florida made everybody do, not just us. There's 400 local governments, there's 67 counties, everybody has just about the same verbiage. What it basically says is that private property owners have a right to develop their property under whatever that designation is. They don't necessarily have a right for, a change to it. That's sort of an action that the governing body has to make. In this case, from staff's perspective, this is a good change to go from commercial to institutional, and that's why we have a recommendation in favor of it. All right, so now we switch to agenda item 5B, which is the rezoning. I know a lot of people can relate to that a lot more than they can the future land use, which really is sort of the bigger picture of the city. But we've broken this out into two parts because the sort of uniqueness of that P1 zoning district is that it can be applied throughout the city, and it doesn't necessarily have to be next to other P1 zoning districts, although it tends to work better when it does. And so that's what some of this analysis is, and that you have to have a concept plan. So P1, we're always going to come to you with something that is being proposed and a concept plan of what that is. So the same analysis that they're going from Commercial Parkway potentially, that shows up on the left-hand side of the screen, to that grayish P1 zoning on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to go through this other than to say that, this proposed nursing home provides a transition from the more intense sort of commercial uses to the south and west, and it's consistent with the adjacent uses and buildings. The applicant's request is for the development of an 83,724 square foot facility, 117 beds, maximum of 30 feet in height. So it's one story. The proposed FAR stands for floor area ratio. That's sort of a measure of how much building gets put on that site. And it's not very big. That's why we make a point of saying that it complies with the zoning code. A nursing home is a listed permitted use in that P1 zoning district, so there's nothing strange or odd about that either. And it does continue sort of that civic core feeling along Minton Road that we have in that area. And as we said, if you all did change that future land use from commercial to institutional, P1 obviously is a zoning that would fit with that category. And from here, really the thing to know is that what we believe is that the conceptual site plan is consistent with the requirements of the P1 zoning district. I show this bench because that's part of what we try to do in that town center area, is to have it function better for the pedestrians and citizens who are not in vehicles. All right, so this gets to the Part B part. So this is the portion that I talked to you all about, the concept plan. And you have that page that's in color that shows up on the screen, plus 4 other pages that are all part of the concept plan. We don't bring this to the Planning and Zoning Board or to City Council until all our questions have been asked. We feel that the code has been met for what they have put together. And so what you see here is the green, and I'll let the engineer explain about that. That's sort of the open space. And then sort of that light grayish color with little lines are the parking spaces. But there's quite a bit of building that shows up sort of like a cream color on that screen. And then you've got a bluish area, which is the existing retention pond. So this pond was created years ago. It was there for when this property gets developed. And then there currently is sort of like an emergency driveway, and I'm going to try to use the cursor to point this out, that there is sort of a path to get to the back of, was in Spiritus, now it's gone back to Your Life, to get to their back of house sort of area. And with this proposal, that would be a paved area instead of just being emergency access. And they would have their shared access with the Your Life, or what was in Spiritus, up at Minton Road. That would not change. And then they would have this access. The only thing that they have to do with this access is to line it up with a driveway called Boughton Way to the south. But other than that, it's not really a new connection. All right, so I'm not going to read through all these bullet points, but I do want to point out that they are going to have the perimeter landscaping. There is a solid fence along the eastern property line, and that's the Woodfield Homeowners Association fence. So that already exists. We also put that the Planning and Zoning Board had wanted to know a little bit more about that. Staff looked into it. The HOA is required to maintain that fence. But what we said is sort of a proviso is if for some reason that HOA no longer, wants to have that fenced, changes their declarations and covenants, et cetera, institutional next to residential does have to put up a fence. So in that case, there is no sort of like they're grandfathered in, is what I'm trying to say. They would be required to have the fence. So that's sort of the takeaway from that. But the facility itself, that building, is going to be 223 feet away from the nearest residential. So it's not right next door to it either. We talked about the 2 driveways, and they do have the covered canopy entry with pavers, and that provides an accent to the facility. This is also an image, or several images, that are in the staff report where we talk about that this is what they have provided us in terms of the appearance of the building. And even though it looks sort of complicated, it's that way on purpose, using multiple gables. That's what's used with the residential behind it, so it does fit in. You do have the fake dormers, you have, the pleasant colors, and they do give some relief. Instead of just having one big sort of block wall, they do have relief to it so that, visually it's more pleasing. So in conclusion, let's go back to the future land use. So this is agenda item 5A. That's where the Planning and Zoning Board held their public hearing last Wednesday, and they made a recommendation that City Council should approve the first reading of Ordinance 2025, which allows us to send to the state this future land use map change from the commercial to the institutional. And then I will talk about 5B. And in 5B, we asked for 2 sort of sub-motions. One is to the Planning and Zoning Board again recommended that you all approve the first reading of ordinance number 2025-26, rezoning the site. And then Part B is to approve the initial site plan. So understanding that if for some reason Ocean Crest goes away and it's going to be a completely different use, they have to come back through the Planning and Zoning Board, and they have to come back to council, because that's how important the concept plan is. It goes hand in hand with it. And like I said, the applicant is here if you'd like to ask any questions of them. If the city attorney could help us with the title of the 2 ordinances.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll read both of them in turn. before I turn it over to the applicants. The first one is ordinance number 2025-25, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on a parcel of land totaling 6.12 plus or minus acres, located approximately at the northeast corner of the intersection of Mitten Road and Heritage Oaks Boulevard, as more fully described herein, from City of West Melbourne commercial to City of West Melbourne institutional, providing an effective date. And the second ordinance is 2025-26, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, rezoning a 6.12 plus or minus acre parcel of land generally located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Mitten Road and Heritage Oaks Boulevard, and as more fully described herein, from City of West Melbourne Commercial Parkway with TCO Town Center overlay to P1 institutional, providing an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Framis, did you want to ask your question now before we have the applicant?
Christine, with institutional as opposed to commercial, how's that affect the parking? It got like 90-some spots now. Is that right?
Yeah, that what they have shown with their concept plan was 93 parking spaces. It's not quite double, but it's almost double what they would be required. That really doesn't have to do with the zoning. That has to do with the use. So each use, like for example, if you have retail, you have a certain amount of parking you have to have per every 250 square feet. If you have industrial, it's a different amount. If you have this type of institutional, it's a different amount if you had a school. So they more than adequately comply with that.
Is the plan, it's just concept, correct? I mean, they're showing 2 handicap spots. It seems like that's very low compared to what the facilities.
You're right, because really the ratio for handicap spots is 1 parking space for every 25. So if they're not showing enough, we absolutely will make them have the right amount.
I only see 2 on the.
Yeah, and that's something that I would ask their civil engineer to come up, that if that's not marked well enough, then we'll get that changed before it comes back to you for second reading.
Can you explain the fence a little bit more to me? It seems a little strange on, whose property is the fence on, and
The fence is actually on the shared property line. So if you can look at your screen and see sort of this pinkish color here that defines the existing 6-foot-tall wood opaque fence, that is a shared property line between the residents to the east and this property.
what kind of conditions it in?
The fence, I believe, is pretty good. We've gone by there before, and it looks like it's fine.
Just seems strange that. Just seems strange that we would require it. Oh, if they ever decide they don't want it anymore, y'all got to pay for it. Why not just do it right from the door? And
Well, it's a code requirement in the zoning code to have a buffer between institutional and residential. So it wouldn't matter, whatever institutional it is or commercial, you would always have to have that buffer. So rather than having 2 sets of fences, that was how we kind of remedied that.
we just change the responsibility to, if it's their responsibility, just make it from that day one. Wouldn't that take care of issues down the road?
I think that's an option. Our challenge was we certainly know the difficulty of a fence next to a fence.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
So I guess our perspective was that since there is an existing fence, doesn't seem to be any issues with the fence, we have them do the landscaping but not require them to put in the fence. I think you're raising an interesting question, if I believe I understand the question correctly, which is why not have the HOA take down their fence and have this?
Don't even take down. Maybe the institution assumes the responsibility of that fence, and then if it ever deteriorates, it's their responsibility, not leave it on if it's the institutional's responsibility to have a fence there, why not just make it that way?
I think one thing to consider is that the fence for the HOA goes past this property boundary.
It does.
So
Yeah, it does. I guess.
So then you'd be requiring them to have ownership of one section of this fence.
Has anybody talked to the homeowners association to get a feel for how they feel about it?
No, but one thing I would like to ask the city attorney is that there is a specific declaration in their covenants that talks about maintenance of that fence. So besides sort of just the changing of who maintains it, wouldn't the HOA have to do something to their documents too?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the council could mandate that it becomes their fence without the HOA agreeing to it. And I'm not sure if the HOA board could agree to it. If it's in their covenants, that may require a vote of their membership as well to amend the covenants. So it may be a kind of complicated process to do that.
I was just curious if anybody talked to the HOA, because I know if it was my HOA, the first thing I'd do is pass on the responsibility to somebody else to maintain it. Cost measure. So.
That's certainly something we can do, is reach out to them.
Yeah, and I think we have the bases covered. If that fence were to go away in the future for whatever reason, then the current property owner that's proposed here would then be required to put up a fence for their property, but just for the width of their property.
Just didn't know if we were talking with each other and talking to the HOA to see, we're telling them if they don't want it, it could be somebody else's problem in this document. I just didn't know if they knew that or not. Anyhow, I did have one more question on the benches. Is the pond gonna, well, it might be for the engineer, but is the pond gonna be fenced, being a nursing home? Is it gonna be
The pond
enclosed?
is already fenced. Again, I know on this, it's kind of hard to see. And so what I was suggesting, I don't know if you can see the cursor here, this really light colored gray line is that existing chain link fence. So if each of these parking spaces is 10 foot wide, bench is about 6 feet in length, it could be here, or, it could be somewhere on either side of this. And that's very similar to, you can't see the Your Life, but remember there's a sidewalk that connects from Mitten Road to the front of Your Life. They also have a bench along there. So it was just sort of giving them an option.
By reading it looked like they were gonna be placed around the retention pond, and it just seemed like that would.
No, right at the edge. Yeah, it would be more at the edge.
Along the roadside.
Yes, along the roadside, but not in the city right away, still on their property. It doesn't look like there's a lot of area, but there's probably about 10 feet, I would think, that they could squeeze something in there.
Maybe it'd be better to squeeze it in near the front of the building instead of the back of the building, because it.
Well, they will have benches here. What I was trying to do is get an additional bench, either here or here. But certainly, if you all have a preference that you really just want to see the benches here, and that if somebody, goes from this part of the sidewalk on site to Heritage Oaks, there's no bench.
I was concerned that we were forcing them to have them north to south there on the retention pond there. I didn't realize it was along the roadside, so I feel better about it being there than, because that looks like an area that's going to be for deliveries and stuff back there, and you probably don't want a whole lot of foot traffic back there anyhow, so thank you.
Thank you. Is that are you finished, Mr. Frempus? Yes, all right. Ms. Foltz, followed by Ms. Adams.
Yeah, I just had a question. There's a lot of parking spots here. And if it's a nursing home, most of those people are not going to be driving. So the reason for the parking spots is for employees?
Yeah, it's a combination of employees and visitors, especially, let me introduce myself first. Thank you. Jake Wise, civil engineer for the project, and happen to be the civil engineer for the Your Life project to the north. And all of these discussion points were discussed 5 or 6 years ago as well. So happy to dive into it as much as you'd like to. With respect to the parking, yes, it is for employees, but also for visitors, especially around the holidays. They have more visitors with their family members.
Okay, because it just is like, why? But then if our code demands so many parking spots.
About half of what they have.
Okay.
They have included quite a bit. Our code doesn't penalize them for almost doubling the amount of parking. What they We do sort of have a requirement, though, because we're trying to not have as much parking, that those parking spaces are going to have to be 11 foot wide, and I have not had that discussion yet with the civil engineer, so that may change it. So if they're showing, was it 93 spaces, Jake? So let's say that instead of 93 spaces, it ends up being 80 spaces, that's fine. They can decrease, they just can't ever increase.
Okay. And then one last question, that emergency exit up there at the top, there, does that go on to Mitten Road? Is that where that goes to, or is that, because I can't tell with this.
Right, now Mitten Road is here at the front, and so this emergency, well, it's not just emergency, it would be for what I call the back of house. So the dumpsters are in the back there, the electrical rooms are in the back here. So it would be for whatever services have to come in through the back, and this only connects to the Your Life assisted living facility. It does not continue on to Henry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Adams, you have something for Ms. Fisher, and then we'll listen to Mr. Weiss's presentation. All right, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I also had very similar questions and concerns in terms of the parking, but I would think even if we're making the parking spots wider and the number drops to something like 80, you're still looking at the same amount of asphalt, paving that's over the same green space. And it seems like, looking at your design, you guys are highlighting the green spaces in the middle. It seems to be something that I'm assuming your residents would like, right? Green space, I think, makes people happy. So I would, at least from one person's perspective, how many staff are going to be employed at this location?
Well, we have today with us the architect for the project, and this is an extremely experienced developer and architect that specializes in these types of facilities. So they have done dozens of these. They know what they need. They know what their peak days are with residents and visitors, and in order to be able to accommodate those peak days is the reason we have as many as we do.
Right, but I'm hearing what you're saying. We've got staff and we've got visitors, but as you shared to Ms. Volz, the highest number of visitors come during the holidays. I don't know how many days you consider holiday visitations, but looking at those days compared to your average run-of-the-mill week, are the majority of these spots going to be then taken by staff?
No. The exact number of staff members, I don't know.
Hi, I'm Ken Tobin, architect for the project, 2401 West Bay Drive, Largo, Florida, for architectural concepts. So I'm happy to answer your questions. We've actually done hundreds of these all over the country. The parking ratio, real quick, runs about, here it's 3 spaces per bed. So we have 117 beds, so we're only required to have 30 spaces, approximately, correct?
I think it's a little more than that, but yeah,
Well,
it's in that ballpark.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark. Oh, you've got it? Okay. Staffing, typical shift runs about 30 people. So that's administrative and nurses and those individuals that take care of everybody. What happens, what we find in all these facilities, the toughest thing to do in the parking is the crossover, is shift change, because we've got nurses coming in, nurses going out. So we've got to accommodate all of that. And so we've found out in practice that having more than the minimum is better for us in 3 shift changes during the day. So even though there's only 30 at one time, that one time in the afternoon when we shift between afternoon and evening, I've got twice as many people trying to park in here.
And both of you worked on the Your Life project that's next door?
I did not. We did not work on Your Life.
Okay, so I would assume, I can't ask then, and does the same equation for parking spots apply to that project that was then created?
It doesn't necessarily apply to ALFs. It applies to skilled nursing.
Okay.
ALF has a different ratio that but it's close, but it's not exactly.
Because my concern is I drive past this location. I live in Heritage Oaks, so I'm very familiar with not only the property, but the people that drive by there on a regular basis. The location that is just to your north, their parking is pretty empty for a good portion of the day. Again, it's probably those shift changes where I notice more of those cars. But even during holidays, we're not seeing heavy traffic use. And so I would just hate to see large empty parking lots for a majority of the time. So I don't know if there's flexibility there in trying to recapture some of the green space, if at all, just expressing my desire of what may work better for that location. Which one of these locations, looking at Heritage Oaks and looking at Minton, is considered, I know the main entrance is facing Minton, but where do you expect people, whether they're visitors, staff, whatever that looks like, where do you expect that main entrance in terms of traffic flow to be entering and exiting? Okay, so it's majority on Minton, but the majority of your parking is then on that south side. Just because from a realistic perspective, I'm picturing, and I know that staff entrance is on the south side, if you are staff or visitor parking in that, near that staff entrance section, I don't know the likelihood of you then exiting through the front of the location, connecting through the Your Life exit onto Minton versus coming out to Heritage Oaks to access that light. And that access has plenty of traffic right now, just like Minton does. So it's a no-win either way.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Minton entrance and exit is a right in, right out, there's no median cut there. Those staff members that have to go south are going to come through Heritage and come around and go to that intersection to go south. Most of them, I'm guessing, so.
We've seen right-ins, right-outs, and people somehow make lefts.
Yeah.
It's not safe, and it's concerning.
I think it's a full median, right? So they're going to have to go for a wheeling. That's not out of the question.
Checking, those were all of my notes, but I had also noted, just as Mr. Pampas did with the handicap parking spaces, did not seem to be equal for what we're looking for. 4 still seems low if we're looking at a total of 90, correct?
It meets the requirements. You only need to have 1 space for every 25 regular parking spaces.
Wow.
But keeping in mind the use, I mean, I know it's just, again, my opinion, but the use, looking at 4 handicap parking spaces seems low. Is there a reason it's not higher, even though it's met the requirement?
We typically park at the required requirement.
So if I can make a suggestion, I know this is sort of on the fly, but you have a few parallel spaces right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible that we add 2 more handicap spaces by converting these parallel, which are going to be used as drop-off anyways?
Parallel spaces require a much wider space than a normal parallel parking space, so it would not fit in that location. It'd be better to convert one of the 90 degrees.
Sort of these areas?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something we can work with them on. I think you've heard the message from council on that. In terms of the parking, if this were a church, for example, churches are allowed to have up to half of their lot in a stabilized grass sort of condition. What many religious organizations find out is that their visitors or parishioners do not like the grass parking when it's raining. So it's something that if you all would like, we can, talk to them about having some of their parking not in a completely paved sort of placement that it is now, but that's something we would have to sort of brainstorm a little bit more with the city manager and the city engineer. We were okay with the 97 spaces. They're required by code to have 59. You're right, it's not optimal to have more. I understand what they're saying. One of the things that I've heard off of Greenboro is that things do get hectic in those parking lots when there are shift changes.
And sorry, I thought I had hit all my questions, Mayor. I have one other. If you're looking for Minton to be the main entrance exit for this facility, especially with the connection piece, why is the majority of the parking then on the south side and not flipped to be on the north side where that connection right is?
So the reason we did that was to push the building as far to the west as we could to create the largest buffer with the residential to the east. We fully anticipate the Minton Road to be our main entrance. The traffic coming from the south will mostly utilize it. Traffic, though, leaving the site heading south will most likely go to Heritage Oaks and try to utilize a traffic signal. So it is going to be a mix of traffic to both. But we think the majority of the visitors will come to the Minton Road and utilize the front, try to go through the front door and park as close as they can. The employees will all park towards the south side near the employee entrance. So that's why we see the mix. Code minimum parking is 59 spaces, and with a changeover of 30 overlapping, we would need 60 spaces just for the employees. So that's why we're at a slightly higher ratio. And again, we're happy to work with staff to reduce that or do some stabilized green spaces or something like that. We have, does this have a laser pointer on it?
You can try it to see if it works.
It works.
Is it pointing?
I don't think it's pointing. Oh, there it goes. Whoops, no.
We can't see it.
Okay, anyway, so there's, thank you, Christy. So there's a row of parking closest to Heritage Oaks Boulevard, and that would probably be the first spaces we would make more green. Also, something that is an important factor is that Heritage, the subdivision actually maintains and controls, I guess, can I steal your mouse?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So there is a large green space here, which is along our southern border.
Right where the
West
sign
Coast,
is, just
yeah.
south of the sign.
There's a sign, and then the neighborhood has a very large landscaping buffer there. That is part of the original plat. So there's a big green space there that's not shown in our site plan because it's actually off of the property here. So there is a lot of opportunity there, and there's some trees that are already existing there as well. So it's a much bigger green space than what it just looks like on the site plan. Also, the fence that you were asking about earlier, this original plat has a 20-foot wide landscape buffer and easement that the fence is actually a part of. And that fence, I've been working on this since 2004, and every time I've been out here, that fence has always been well maintained. It's consistent across the back of this property, and it's consistent across the Your Life. When we permitted Your Life 5 or 6 years ago, had the exact same discussion, and it was agreed that it would be better to keep that existing fence that's been there, and it has been so well maintained by the HOA over the years. But could be a different HOA now, so happy to talk to them, or the city, of course, staff can do so, and see if they might have changed their preferences. But that was something that did come up before. We do have a 4-foot protective fence already around the stormwater pond, and that's just for the safety of any traveling residents of our project or any residents of West Melbourne that might be walking here and enjoying our new benches in the future. So did I answer all your questions?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of follow-up things. Is there any intersection improvements being done or required for the Heritage or Minton?
No. When we first developed this site for the Your Life, we actually master planned both sites. So we put in the master stormwater, we put in the master utilities, we did a shared driveway, we did the right decel lane off of Minton Road, we did the shared driveway access along the backside of this one that Christy pointed out earlier. And so all of that was master planned so that we would have those improvements already made. So the owner of the project helped pay for a lot of those improvements, even though he wasn't the developer for Your Life. And you talked about the Your Life parking ratio. So that's a different type of facility. That's a memory care facility, and they have different needs for parking. Your Life is also has a lot of facilities all across the state of Florida and beyond, and so they knew what they needed for theirs. But this is a different type of assisted living nursing home.
Let me stick on the road here a second. And this being a new project, you know, Mr. Rhodey, I know there was some talk on maybe 3-laning that at one point. Is that there and trying to improve is that something that we've looked at?
The developer from the last project on the south lot had said that since he's not required to make the changes, he would not be interested in working with the city to make those improvements unless the traffic counts came that he would have to.
This is a new development, right?
Well, yeah.
We're in the process of.
I don't think you answered Councilmember Frampus's question very good. Maybe Christie or somebody from the development team, do you want to focus on that main entrance, the Minton entrance? I think what he was trying to explain, the question was, is there any road improvements that are needed on Minton? It has an existing turn lane.
I'm more concerned about Heritage than I am Minton.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that is a shared entrance. If you drive there now, it's certainly off center to the existing facility because it was meant to be the entrance for both, whatever projects came here. As far as the Heritage Oaks, I don't believe there's any improvement of like a left turn lane to get into this development because it's a single lane road. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we weren't proposing and weren't.
Is there anything that the city can do to improve that? I mean,
we could double check with the traffic engineer who reviewed this for us, but their volume even at shift change is going to be pretty low because it's not retail, it's not a consistent, it's going to be a pretty low number to warrant a left turn lane. But we are happy to work with Christy Fisher, our planning director, to have the traffic engineer take another look at that and make sure that those numbers don't reach any kind of expanding of Heritage.
Yeah, we can dive deeper into that. That's a great comment. We actually redesigned our site based on working with staff. Mr. Rohde had multiple meetings in order to reduce the number of driveways. We originally had 2 driveways. We had a big courtyard on the south side of the building, and we eliminated that, pushed it far back to the east. We only have the 1 driveway, and the concern was the AM peak hour. AM peak hour, it backs up. So we even worked with our client to change his shifts. So he has the majority of his staff changes on the shifts at different hours in the peak hour. We had our traffic engineer go out there on a weekday morning and watch all the traffic and do the counts and see exactly how far it stacks back there. It doesn't stack back to that driveway location. So as Christy mentioned earlier, we went through multiple iterations and quite a few months of being to get this site plan the way it is today. And the AM peak hour, which is where the Heritage Oaks Boulevard stacks back the furthest, we only have 20 trips. That's a very, very low generator. Any other allowable use with the current zoning and land use would be a much higher parking, much higher trips. It's just some of the allowable uses, and we wouldn't even become before council if we did one of these allowable uses in the current zoning. Retail stores, laundry, dry cleaning, hotels, motels, restaurants.
but you're not.
No, exactly.
So,
But that's what could be there if we didn't get this approved.
That's true. It could be, but it's not what we're here for. So my last question is, are the beds going to be privately funded, or is you accepting government assistance towards the residents? Where I believe your life is all private.
I don't know exactly the mix, but typically with this particular or this particular operator, they do a mixture of some public funding.
So they have a breakdown of single rooms and double rooms
We've
and
got private rooms and semi-private rooms in this facility. So and typically, there's more right now. There's more semi-privates than privates. That's about to change in '26 when the code changes. It's going to totally flip. So, but
to what?
To 90% privates and 10%
Wow.
semi-privates. So right now, there's no regulation on the mix. There will be at the beginning of '26 or the end of.
But that's not going to determine whether it's privately funded or you accept.
No,
government funds.
but typically this facility is programmed to be a privately funded But Medicare and Medicaid sometimes is,
Accepted.
they do set some aside,
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
That could be more specific.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking for clarification. You had said the reason the majority of the parking is on the south end of this lot is because it increases the buffer as opposed to if it was on the north end of the lot, closer to the Minton entrance and exit?
No, we shifted the building west to provide the greatest buffer to the east where the existing residential is. And then our employee entrance is on the south side, and our guest main entrance is on the west side. And there's a covered drop-off and paver area there. So we anticipate the majority of our visitors will be parked on the west side where employees don't park, and a majority of our employees will park on the south side.
Right. I'm just thinking because of the connection that already leads to Minton, I guess in my mind, why it's not just flipped. Christy, does that make sense?
So when you say flip, the building flipped or the parking?
You're basically moving this parking strip. If they want people to utilize more of Minton, then I would think the majority of the parking has to then be closer to that Minton access,
Yeah,
which would then put it on the north side of that building rather than the south.
Let me chime in. I hadn't said this, but with the town center overlay, the notion was to try to get buildings closer to Minton Road so that it had more of a town center feel. And we actually, I think there's a provision in the town center that we're trying not to have double rows of parking along Minton Road. Otherwise, if we don't have that provision, then certainly it would be possible. But the notion is to try to create it so that it is sort of a, you don't just see stacks and stacks of cars as you're driving along Minton Road.
I hear that. I'm just looking at this design and asking myself if I were a visitor to this location and I was, entering or leaving the location, the likelihood of me using Minton versus Heritage Oaks.
Okay.
Thank you.
So to help answer your question too, the south is a side corner setback. You see how our building kind of bumps out where the property line also bumps out? And we have a lesser setback to the north. We also want to minimize any impacts with cars and noise or anything like that with our neighbor to the north. So we have 0 doors on that north wall at all, and it's all landscaping and greenery. So that was important to keep our activities with respect to the parking lot and people coming and going to be away from your life. That was also important.
Yeah, and I guess to clarify, with these types of institutions, you always have sort of back-of-house facilities, don't you? I mean, it's, I guess if this was a type of business where you didn't have back-of-house, there would be no need to have this, and then you could say, that some of the parking could be here and this building could be shifted a little bit further to the east. That's what makes, they definitely have sort of maximized their footprint by, having these green courtyards internally.
Yeah, we have 2 existing driveway stub-outs to us, so those are set, those are locked in. We have the driveway to the south off of Heritage Oaks, so that's set. So we've got 3 corners basically already locked in. So we're working with our building and our parking to be within that area, meeting the town center overlay requirements, and of course, all of the other requirements that we need for our facility as well.
All right, thank you. So we've sort of backed into this. You didn't have an opportunity to make your presentation before we started asking you the questions. Did you have a formal presentation you wanted to make?
Actually, as always, staff did a very thorough, great presentation about it. I did want to say we've seen other projects for this site and for other nearby sites that I would say were not compatible at all. And we know that neighborhood is very well organized, and you know that neighborhood is very well organized, and you've seen them come out. We do a 500-foot radius notification of all property owners, and we haven't had one person come to the Planning and Zoning Board. There may be somebody here tonight, I don't know, but I don't think staff has had any complaints. We haven't heard from any of the neighbors. So we think we've done a pretty good job of trying to work with staff on their known concerns, having our traffic engineer go out there and watch and see how it really operates there. And of course, we waited until school was open so we could see if there's school buses or a bus stop or anything else like that that we could try to help with or make better. So we've really spent a lot of time making traffic a priority. And we did the same thing with Your Life when they did master plan these driveways previously as well. And from my understanding, there's been no complaints about Your Life. So this seems like a really good compatible use. This whole corridor, as you saw in the staff presentation, has becoming a P1 corridor. So we're 100% compatible with respect to that. The current zoning allows up to 40 feet. That could be a 3 or 4 story building. We don't think that's a good idea. I had a client previously said that they wanted to do that. I told them I wouldn't work on the project. Just not compatible for this site. So this is a single story building. The other thing about this type of use is they're marketing to the children that parents need care. So when you're marketing to them, you have to keep an immaculate facility to be successful. As you heard earlier, they have hundreds of these facilities and have worked on them, and they know what they need to be successful. It also provides a community need. There's a real need for this in this area, and that's the studies that they do is to help determine that, and they know that there is a need as well with all of their experience. So long term, just like Your Life, it will be well maintained. It's set up almost like a residence, so it's of much, much less intense use than anything that could be in the current zoning and land use. As you saw in the staff presentation, we're at less than or almost half of the allowable floor area ratio, which just means we're not trying to cram too much of a building on here that could be a lot bigger. We do meet all of our concurrency requirements as well, and this Planning and Zoning Board did unanimously recommend approval. And of course, staff recommends approval. There's a whole bunch of criteria that we have to meet to be compatible with the future land use and with the zoning, and we meet all of that criteria. And that's detailed in the staff report. I promise I won't go through it unless you have more questions about it. So with that being said, I do appreciate a chance to respond if there are any public comments, and if you have any more questions at all, that's what we're here for.
All right, I do not see any lights on here. What's the wishes of the council? We've got 25 and 26 separately, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, please.
Ms. Volz?
Make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2025-25.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frempus?
A second with a statement.
All right, thank you. What's your statement, please?
I do see a need for this in our area, and I do believe that besides shift change, I think it will be a low impact on traffic in the area. So I know facilities typically like this don't get a whole lot of traffic coming into them. So I think the impact in traffic on, I know we can't take traffic into consideration, so be careful. I don't want to get yelled at, Christy. But yeah, I think it's going to be low impact on traffic. It's probably a pretty good fit for this area. I think the view that they showed, what the building looked like, it looked pretty good there. I do agree that coming down Heritage and seeing all that parking there, it might not be the most attractive thing, and hopefully we can buffer that in somehow where we can't, it's not very visible, and but that's my statement, so there you go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Adams?
I had just wanted to respond to the, I don't know if it was a question or more of a statement of, not hearing back from residents. I can tell you I do hear from residents on this parcel and the southern parcel to it, I would say quite often. And I do think in terms of this type of facility going at this location versus what could be going at this facility. I think it's a good fit for the community. I think it fits well with having your life next to it, with the types of visitations and things that will be utilizing this type of space, ideally thinking that both will stay there long-term. But in terms of what could go there versus this type of use, I think this is a good fit for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Foltz, and we have a second from Mr. Frampus. All those in favor of approving this, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. Next is 2025-26. Mr. Carey, did you want to say something?
No, I was going to jump in if we weren't going to do the second one, so, but you got to it before I needed to, so.
Okay. Mr. Frampus?
Make a motion that we approve the first reading of 2025-26 as written.
All right, thank you. Ms. Volz?
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frampus and a second from Ms. Volz. All in favor of approving the concept plan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Rhodey, you're going to get back to us with a couple things we discussed and
Yeah, there's
the HOA and all that.
several items, including the HOA item. I also just want to clarify, Director Fisher, this will be on the first meeting in December, the second reading?
That's correct.
Okay. I
Yeah,
just
and,
want-
and if I can just clarify, City Council did approve both parts A and B. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does that cover everything for you, Ms. Fisher? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to 5C. I'm sorry, Ms. Adams. I thought you left your light on. I'm sorry.
Nope, just a quick question for Mr. Rhodey. Knowing that this would then come forward for the first meeting in December, does that give enough time to contact the HOA in your experience in terms of getting feedback from them?
Yeah, certainly to get some feedback. I know we went, not myself, but the staff went through this years ago with the first project. And so we'll take a look at that and the logistics of it, right? I mean, I know they left, but they were willing to put up another fence. Yeah, they were, it's just that, the problem with two fences next to each other is who takes care of the in-between the two fences, right? And it just becomes a nightmare. And so I think the idea we had was a good one, but I think that's the new idea is something to look into and see if that would be a better option. But they're happy to comply with whatever landscape buffering requirements that are needed. That's not a deal breaker for the project.
All right, thank you. All right, next item, 5C, approval of ordinance 2025-27. This is the second reading. Mr. Carey.
Did we jump out of order? Okay. This is ordinance number 2025-27, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Florida, relating to cleanliness and sanitation of premises, amending Section 26-104 of the City Code of the City of West Melbourne, relating to notice of violation to the owner, amending Section 26-105 relating to hearings, providing for conflict, providing for severability, providing for codification and scrivener's errors, and providing an effective date. And as you know, this is the ordinance we discussed 2 weeks ago that the City Council had desired in order to create a citation program for trash on the road that would allow code enforcement or police officers to cite somebody with a $20 citation for a first offense and $45 for a second offense, rather than it going through the code enforcement process. And just as a reminder, a code enforcement violation can result in fines of up to $250 a day, running continuously until the problem's taken care of. So, in that way, this is an easy way to get the problem resolved faster through a citation rather than code enforcement process, which can take a couple months to work its way through the system, and also, at less expense to the residents because it's a one-time fine rather than a series of fines that run until it's corrected. And so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, this would be on second reading if you would like to discuss, and let me know if you'd like to to vote on this and make it part of our code.
I do have a question.
Well,
Yes.
I have a whole bunch of lights
Okay.
on this one. Did you need to read the ordinance?
I just did. I did before I started discussing it. Yeah.
All right, I'm sure I was here. The first light is Mr. Frampus.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2025-27 on second reading with a question.
We need to open and close the public hearing.
We're still in public hearing. Do we have any, okay, all right, thank you, we're still in that. Your question, Mr. Frampus?
All right.
Well, let's get a second, I'm sorry.
Public, yeah.
No,
Close.
No cards, but we have to formally open and close.
all right, we will officially close the public hearing. We have no cards. Thank you. All right, is there, Ms. McGuire, do you have a second?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll second.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Frampus, your question?
Mr. Carey, you stated a police officer could do this fine or citation. How's the officer going to realize that the warnings were properly given prior to him writing the ticket? Or is it going to be something that he's sent out to do based on the warning not being complied with?
My understanding is that the warnings will be recorded in the system so that when an officer looks up the address, they can see if there's been a warning prior to issuing the citation. If there has been a warning, then that officer can issue a citation. If there has not, he or she would then issue the warning first. But Chief is here if you want to ask or have him answer any questions about process.
Is there anything other than that you want to add, Chief?
No, we're still talking about finalizing our process, but similar to any traffic citation or anything, there's a record created right away, and it's entered by our records division within a couple days into the system. So I would anticipate the same type of structure here, and the officers can look back and see what the history is.
So when we talked about the warning before, they were going to get instructions on how to comply. That's not typically something an officer would hand out when he gives a warning. So are we restructuring how we're doing warnings?
Well, we are restructuring how we're going to be doing warnings specifically for code violations. So we're working on that final process, whether it's going to be direct in the computer system or in triplicate, or how we're doing that. So we've had a couple meetings on that. We're trying to finalize that, but I'm confident we'll have a good process that, and certainly if someone
I just wanted
didn't get a
easy
warning
for our staff to,
And really who I see focusing on this is going to be our code enforcement officers and our PSAs, probably not patrol officers as much, but they certainly would be able to if we wanted them to.
Thank you. No other questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Volz, your question was answered. I take it your light disappeared. All right, so we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frampus and a second from Ms. McGuire. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right. We will close the public hearing. We'll open the public forum. Are there any cards for public forum? No. All right. We will close the public forum and we'll go to the consent agenda. This will be to approve the October 27th minutes and the November 4th minutes. Ms. Adams.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right. Thank you. And Ms. McGuire.
Second.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion on the floor from Ms. Adams and a second by Ms. McGuire. All those in favor of approving the October and November minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, thank you. Next item, 8A, action agenda. Addendum to agreement between the City of West Melbourne and Promise.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. Presenting this item this evening, although we have Mr. Jeff Keel from Promise to answer any questions regarding the Promise and the Promise operation, but was approached by Mr. Keel earlier last week, earlier last week, having some challenges with the cafe and asked the question of interest in closing the cafe so that they could market the site. Going through the agreement, it does talk about the lease agreement that the city has with Promise and or the cafe, however you want to say it, to remain open. And so in an effort of transparency, Promise, Mr. Keel wanted to come forward and ask the city's permission to, with the possibility to go dark so that they could market the site and see if they could get a tenant. Per the lease agreement, any tenant that they were able to get into an agreement with would have to come to the city council to be approved. And so this was kind of a good first step anyway, knowing that that process might be here in the works. And so I think really with that, there have been two items that were brought to our attention. I don't know, Mr. Keel, if you want to come towards the microphone, but the first item is that about 4.5 years ago, Promise was here, and there was a liquor license award. There was a liquor license awarded so that they could do some, some wedding type, maybe not wedding, but event type activities at the site with alcohol. There were some provisions put in place, fencing and hours and rules as far as how big the events could be and no serving to the public, those kinds of things. If this item were to move forward, I think Promise is amenable to adding a line to eliminate that liquor section of the code. So I think that's an important item that was brought up and certainly open for the council to discuss. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Keel.
Thank you. Because of there's a 9-year history, I appreciate the opportunity to provide some history of our building in the park and this request, which I understand is not an insignificant request of the council. In 2016, Promise and the city entered into an agreement for the Promise Cafe and Bakery. And after receiving a large donation from a generous donor and with the amazing support from the city, construction began. I was fortunate to come on board in advance of the grand opening in 2020. The dream of this Promise endeavor was to build and operate a restaurant to serve West Melbourne and the surrounding community and to provide gainful employment for a significant number of our disabilities community. When the doors were opened, 8 to 10 Promise resident employees were trained and employed with an expectation that it would be a significant part-time job for them. The expectation was that this operation would become self-sustaining within a reasonable amount of time after the opening. During the initial weeks, park goers and community supporters came out to support the endeavor. However, it was clear early on the customer traffic would need to increase significantly to be near enough for it to be self-sustaining. After about 5 weeks, the park closed for some time due to COVID-19. And during that time, I sought advice from restaurant owners and experts. Unfortunately, they had no silver bullets other than to express concern over the location for a restaurant. Having just opened, we felt the need to make it work. I was concerned that the trend at that time and COVID-19 did not help, but it was clear that that operating with that schedule and with that staffing level would require heavy subsidization. From that time on, we felt a tremendous amount of commitment to our resident employees, our donor, and the city to find a successful strategy. We have been committed to trying to make it work, including additional investments. We enhanced the ice cream shop and the quality of the ice cream. We expanded the food and beverage offerings. We moved our thrift shop into the building as an upscale resale boutique with wonderful clothing and accessories in hopes that there would be synergy between shoppers and customers for what we were offering. We focused on kids' parties. We added more prominent signage to the building and on Minton Road. We fenced off the back patio to accommodate larger parties. We invested in an alcoholic beverage license, which we later decided to surrender after moving the boutique into the large event space. We invested in marketing, platform and marketing. Frankly, for those frequent customers and shoppers who come in, they believe it's a wonderful place, as do I. In the 5 years we have been open, we have sold 170,000 food items out of that location. And yet, we have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there is no path to coming close to break even for the type of business that we are trying to operate in that building. It is clear that families in the park are a determining factor of our business. When the park is fairly empty, it is reflected in our business results. After first approaching the staff last year to alert them of our situation, we have tried to pursue confidential conversations about a sale or sublease. However, it has proven to be difficult while we continue to operate. In fact, employee retention, knowing that this is our desire, is virtually impossible, and we have had 4 managers since last year because they see the challenge and leave for more stable opportunities. In fact, that just happened, as I received a text message from the manager who we were high on at 7:46 last Monday, letting me know that the previous day was her last day because she found a more stable opportunity. Without stable management, it is virtually impossible to operate. That said, it has become clear that our best bet is to close, hire a real estate professional to more aggressively market the building to businesses with a business model that makes more sense for this location. We understand that the city must approve whoever we bring to the table. Coming to this decision has been difficult, as demonstrated by over 5 years of trying to make it work with a limited ability to employ more than a handful of our residents for a minimal number of hours each week and absorbing losses month after month. Even with that, for our residents who work there, change is not easy for our population. We understand the limitations in the land agreement between Promise and the city, and we ask for the understanding that this would allow us to stem losses and aggressively pursue an owner or a tenant that is a better fit for the location. You also have our commitment that we would maintain the building as if we were in it, and this would not become an issue for the city. Also, because I understand that this is public, I want to express that the Promise housing community is on sound financial footing. However, as a nonprofit, continuing to absorb sizable losses is a challenge and not in the best interest of the future for our population. I respect the fact that you are charged with making decisions in the best interest of the city, and especially because of our management retention challenges, would appreciate it if you will be supportive of us as we try to find an acceptable tenant and the best solution for our residents who count on us to do that. Again, I know it's a big ask, and you have the right to reject the request and require that we stay open. However, this will be a challenge without management, and I hope you will work with us on it. Thank you.
Mr. Francis, followed by Ms. Volz.
I don't have any questions for you, sir. I mean, I don't know if anybody has questions for Mr. Keel.
Any questions for Mr. Keel while we have him up here? Mr. Gaylord.
Mic on. Mr. Keel, do you know, like, what are the losses Promise is currently undertaking as a result of keeping this open? And I guess the reason I'm asking that question is, in looking over this agenda item, you guys will need to pursue additional interested tenants. I'm trying to determine what the nature of the business is going to have to be of those tenants to allow you to have a self-sustaining, profitable business that won't necessarily run into the same challenges that you're currently facing now. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I don't think it's a restaurant, and I've heard that loud and clear from the restaurant industry. I think it is the type of business that has some sustainable income that doesn't count on traffic at the park. So, for example, maybe some type of kids operation, some type of daycare, some type of play area, gaming place, something like that. But what What it needs is somebody with a sustainable income stream that isn't dependent on the weather being great and there being a lot of people in the park, who then will also make the trek and do our operation. So that's what I foresee. And I'll be just candid with you. That operation will lose $150,000 this year. So that is monies that we are taking that we could be using for our residents to plug that hole. And some would argue that, God, why'd you wait this long? And we waited this long because of the commitment we've got to make it work. You know, we appreciate the fact that a donor wrote a big check to us. And we appreciate the amazing generosity that this council has had for Promise. And so I didn't take that lightly. But the losses are sizable. And I'll be honest with you, $150,000, that to me is best case scenario going forward, because we have managed this in a way where we've streamlined as much as possible. And I don't see a pathway to it being better than that. And the other thing is even more important than just that is I can't hire managers, because what happens is they come in, you know, I do a great sales job of getting them to come in, and then they come in and they realize that there are so many, so they have to staff it with a reasonable number of employees. And then there are pockets during the day that there's just nobody coming in because it's either too hot or there's clouds in the sky or whatever. And I think we had hoped when we launched this endeavor that we would become a destination. And what I have learned in the process is restaurants want to be near restaurants. And let's face it, it's not the easiest entry into our building. Might be a different story if there was a driveway off of Minton Road and you could pull right in and go there. But, you know, you got to go around and come up the front and everything. And, you know, people are into convenience, and this is not convenient for a restaurant to operate. So I don't think it would be a restaurant. I think it would be something else. But again, maybe it's a school or a preschool where they've got tuition that they can count on. Now, we haven't hired anybody to help market it yet, you know, pending this. So I would rely on professionals to help us figure out how to optimize this situation, which is pretty tough on us and our population. So I hope that answered your question.
Ms. Volz?
I still, oh.
And what that
Is it for comment, or do you have a question for Mr. Keel?
No, I don't have a question for him.
Okay, right, fine. All right, so we're back to Mr. Frampus. Just comment, and Mr. Keel, I think we're finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been going on for some time, and I think the city has made a lot of accommodations for this property, and I fall back on that I believe that council made a reasonable offer to assume the property from them, and to continue on, you know, going above and beyond that, I'm not comfortable with it, and I don't know that I support this shutting the operation down and leaving the building vacant while things are, you know, Mr. Carey could all along have been trying to find somebody to market this.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in the agreement that prevents them from finding tenants, but they would, of course, have to bring the tenant to you for approval once they get it, yeah.
But all along, this could have been happening. And what are according to the current agreement, what types of businesses could go there? Is it just...
The agreement, I don't have it in front of me. The exact wording is I think it says concession or some compatible harmonious, compatible use, something along that line. I'll need to pull up the agreement to see the exact wording.
I really believe that everybody had good intentions in the beginning of this, and it was everybody was high on the idea. Obviously, it didn't work out. The location, as Mr. Keel said, doesn't work for restaurants. We thought it would, be a good idea, or when they originally came up with this. I know a couple people are still on council that originally came up with this and agreed to it. That it was a good idea back then. It doesn't seem to be one now. I do have a couple things that if council were to move forward with this agreement, that I think there should be some changes in the agreement, like if there's not an active negotiation going on at this 6-month provision of closure, that the extension not be granted. It should be terminated at, but if they're in the middle of a negotiation, allow the extra 3 months for the extension. All utilities must be maintained during the sale period, or the 6-month closure. Again, Mr. Rhodey beat me to the punch on this one, that the alcohol does not extend to the negotiation of the new lease agreement, and I believe that it should only be marketed towards what our lease agreement currently says and not bring it back to council. I think that's a no-win if you bring it back to council and try to negotiate a contract. It should be under the contract that is in place, and it shouldn't be marketed towards anything else but that.
And to be clear, the current agreement says food service concession on the property for the enjoyment of residents and visitors to the park.
So that's my suggestions to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Foltz.
Yeah, having been in the restaurant business myself for a couple of years, I know what it's like, and caused me to file for bankruptcy because we put everything we had into a restaurant, and it didn't work out. And restaurants are very, very picky places to operate. I mean, they just are. And I don't think a restaurant is ever going to be viable there. It's just probably not going to happen. I think Jeff is right. Maybe daycare, some sort of daycare or school, something like that, probably would be the best idea. There's playground equipment there. I think we should let them go dark for 6 months and see what happens, and then we can look at renegotiating and go from there.
Yep. Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rhodey, this reads that the city manager recommends that the city council and then authorize the city manager to do this. In my discussions with you earlier today, I got the feeling that that's not the wording that you chose.
Yeah, I don't have a dog in this fight. That wording is not meant to be misleading, right? This is a council decision, not a staff decision. And so while it says that, the intent of it is that if the council moves forward with this, the action would be to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. So it's misleading. It's not intended. You know, when items come up, it's rare that I make a recommendation one way or the other unless they're logistical items or a contract we want to enter into where I say, you know, we've gone through the bid process. We've got the low bidder. I'm recommending that we hire the low bidder.
Can you give us your thoughts on letting it go dark?
Boy, I do not vote.
I understand. I said your thoughts. I didn't say your vote.
My perspective on this, I will give my honest perspective on this. I think a lot of the language in this agreement was written before the restaurant was open. And so there was a lot of language and effort put into concern that they would never get to open. They would never get to the actual day of opening. And it's written, as you read through it, it's written in several different sections, planning for that, if you will, from the city's perspective. Obviously, they did open, and so a lot of that language, you know, we're almost 10 years later, and we wish the language was written more about the operations as opposed to them becoming an entity, and whether they were able to do that or not. And so I think, over the course of my 4 years, I've had numerous conversations with Mr. Keel about the challenges that he's faced, and we've talked marketing strategies and signage, and we've allowed, what I would call minor efforts, increasing signage, putting signage in different places to help promote the cafe, and certainly on a hot, busy day, there's people in there, and as I will attest, on an overcast, cold day, there's not a lot of people in the park, and thus not a lot of customers. And so I think, I know I'm kind of riding the fence here with some of these statements, but I do acknowledge that they operate and own a building in our park, and it's the vested interest from my perspective is the keeping the park healthy, right? And so if that's a different tenant, so be it. As long as it's, the word I like to use, as long as it's harmonious with the park, might be a good thing. A different tenant might be a better thing for our park. But certainly, there is an agreement in place that says they have to operate this, and thus we wanted to be transparent and come forward and, ask permission rather than forgiveness, so.
Well, I, for one, as in my discussion with you today, would not support the liquor license going to, I'd just soon take it out of the contract, period. I don't want that in the middle of our park, and I had faith and trust in Jeff and that organization that it would never go too far, and I don't have that faith and trust in someone that I don't even know yet. So I wouldn't want them to buy the place thinking that that came with it, because that was kind of a one-off that we even allowed that. It wasn't part of the original contract. So I would want to make sure if we agreed to this that we took that completely out of there.
Totally agree with that.
I also would have liked to have gotten more discussion on what they think the possibilities of things going there. I don't want them to spend a bunch of time on soliciting these companies only to find out it's not something the council's going to be okay with. So I would have liked to have seen some communication. I don't know if a workshop or not, we just had one of those, but that says, here's the kinds of things that we would be okay with, so that they know up front, don't come with this and do come with that. So I'm still nervous about allowing it to go dark. I just, usually that's not a good thing, but again, I want the alcohol out of there. Obviously more discussion on the going dark, but I'd like to get some more communication between us and Promise on, here's the possibilities that we see. Which ones are you guys okay with? Because, and I do worry about, and I would ask the attorney, if they brought in a daycare, for example, or something like that, which seems kind of innocuous, but what if they get injured in the park while their parents maybe didn't show up? I don't know. I just don't know what all the risks are with that kind of thing. Since they're in the middle of our park, where does our liability end?
Yeah, so as you know, any tenant that came in that wasn't a food service concession would require an amendment to the agreement. And if we had to amend the agreement, we would obviously require them to indemnify us for any claims. Obviously, though, the risk we run is that anybody that gets hurt in the daycare is going to sue both the daycare and the city. And if they can indemnify us, but it still takes time, resources to get out of the lawsuit, and that's assuming that the judge is willing to uphold the indemnification. And so, I wouldn't say there's no risk, but we would obviously work on the back end through the amendment to protect ourselves as much as we could.
And I'll ask Mr. Rudy this, is there any further thoughts on involving the city into whether they would want to get into this, just to prevent someone we don't want getting into it?
Yeah, I think Promise has shown the willingness to continue our discussions on that option.
we're going to vote tonight to allow them to go on or not.
Well, I mean, they're two separate items. This item is the item in front of the council this evening. Regardless of that other item, that would not happen overnight. So they're making this request right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Francis, and then Ms. Adams.
I guess to Mr. Bentley's point, I think I would like to resolve one before the other, and it seems like, you know, we did make an offer to resolve the problem for them, and if we can get that discussion done first, and if that doesn't work out, maybe go down this road. On a different note, I have a problem, maybe, and you can tell me if it's a problem or not, or what you think, Mr. Rhodey, is a for-profit business marketing, such as a daycare, marketing our park and utilizing our equipment on a daily basis for the wear and tear for their profit. I have a problem with that. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that shouldn't be part of the marketing of that business, our park.
It's funny you mention that. We've anecdotally had some discussions in the office, and that is one of the several items that we have talked about. Now, we can let, you know, and again, I know we're kind of getting off subject, but if a preschool or daycare were to be a tenant that the council would consider, we would have to put some provisions for them having their own equipment.
Where would they put it?
That,
And that's why my suggestion was.
yes,
We only allow it marketed towards the current provisions that are in the lease agreement than to say, hey, it's up in the air, so.
you're in a public park, yes. Those are some of the challenges that we would have to work through without question.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding, based on some conversations that I've had in the past with Mr. Rhodey, that even if the city took ownership of the building as is today, we don't necessarily have a concrete need or plan for that building, versus I hear, you know, what Mr. Keel's saying about he'd like to go and explore those options. It was also my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the offer the council made was rejected. It was not. It is back on the table. That conversation is still continuing. Where are we with that?
The counter offer the council made was rejected, but we continue to discuss price.
Gotcha. So
No deal is ever dead.
Understood. I don't necessarily see that it hurts the city to give Promise time should they wish to explore the options of finding another tenant, especially knowing that they would have to come before this body to make a decision on what could be allowed there. So I think if we were clear on these are our concerns in terms of liability, we still want them, you know, to be successful, but their success doesn't necessarily, you know, it's tied in a weird way with this building and the use that councils previously had given to them. I do understand Mr. Frampis's concern in terms of if you leave it open-ended and it stays dark for a year, then what type of impact does that have on the building? I couldn't. Right. But if we give them 9 months and they ask for an extension, it's granted. There doesn't seem to be concrete, this is the end of our negotiation period in terms of giving them that leeway. I do understand that concern because it's a beautiful building. It's within our city. So what we don't want to see is it, you know.
Deteriorate.
Yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for. We don't want to see it deteriorate. I think that could look poorly on the city. It could then become a danger to the residents that use the park. But I personally don't see the harm in letting them have a certain amount of time to explore that option. And if that option does not pan out or they can't find someone viable to go in that location with the stipulations from council, then maybe that, you know, discussion continues. That's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I guess I get to weigh in now. So this contract was written back in 2016 when everything was going well. The building was not there yet. It was written for the benefit of everyone, and I think it's a very good contract. City has contracts with all different types of things, different vendors, different things that we have. I think we should stick with the contract. We're not hurting Promise at all. They can still market it. They can still look for other tenants. They're not prohibited from any of that. I would not like to see the building dark when there are events going on at the park on the weekends and things, and that building is open. It is open. It is welcome to other people to come in there. I wouldn't want the building to be locked up and just be dark. So this is not something that I would support. So we are to the point now where we're looking for this particular agreement here, a motion and a second, to authorize the city manager to execute an addendum. So where is the council with this? Ms. Adams, followed by Mr. Frampus.
Mayor, I'm just looking for clarification. Based on what Mr. Keel said, if we do not, I mean, I don't know if the question can be redirected to him, if council wants him to come back up, but if you don't mind joining us for a second. Are you losing the 150 at the end of the year and potentially the next year, whether that building goes dark or not?
No.
What is the financial impact for Promise versus looking at it going dark versus not?
In full transparency, the fixed costs before we open our doors for operating it is about $5,000 a month. So we still will have costs associated with it. And I also want to reinforce that one of the things I'm here to say is I've got a management problem. I cannot manage that operation, okay? I've had 4 people since last year. And then we hire somebody we think is good, and on Monday she tells us the day before was her last day. So that's part of the reason we're asking to go dark, is that we don't even have anyone to operate it. And then if I have to, in order to get somebody to operate it, then I got to go out and hire somebody probably for a lot more money. And now we're back to hiring somebody and trying to tell them, we want you to come work here, but just know that you're going to see people walking through the building because we're going to be trying to market it. Who wants to work in that environment? So part of the predicate for this request to go dark is to give us some breathing room. It's not like it's not going to cost us anything. It is going to cost us something. And it gives us the breathing room to really kind of go at it hard. I don't want it to take 9 months, but I don't know, because we haven't really, any of the conversations we've had have been soft conversations with, hey, I know this, make a call to Calvary Church and I'll talk to them about it. Those are the types of calls, but we're not real estate professionals, and I believe in hiring a professional to come in and help us figure out with parameters. Happy to have those parameters and understand them. Better to know it at the beginning than to bring someone. I don't want to bring someone to you that I'm putting all my eggs in this basket, and then you all feel like it's not the right fit. I'd like to know that ahead of time, but continuing to lose money and then not being able to have stable management. Who wants to work in an environment like that? And I'm proud of the place, but you know what? It just was a kind of a bad idea to have a 7,000 square foot restaurant in the middle of a park, unfortunately.
I didn't hear the other number, just sorry to be clear. You're hitting $5,000 a month.
Well, no, 5,000. If we close the doors, our fixed costs are $5,000.
To go dark would be $5,000 a month.
Yes.
What is it to not go dark per month?
To not go dark? Well, it all depends on what we do. I mean, if I figured out a way
Your
to
plan moving forward, if council did not support it going dark, what ballpark that number for me?
Well, it depends. If we open up the ice cream window and just serve ice cream, and I'd probably get, it would be less than $150,000. It'd be less than that $12,000 or $13,000 run rate, and it would be more than the $5,000. So I don't know, $7,000, $8,000 maybe. Because we'd have to hire staff to staff the window. I don't see a scenario where we could open the doors, and rehire and, try to find a manager who I'm going to have to pay more money to than I had paid the last one. So, I think it's somewhere between losing $13,000 and $5,000. But, we still got to manage it, even if it's the ice cream window. We still got to manage it, and that would not be our preference. Our preference would be to go at it and try to find the right tenant acceptable to council and the city, put everything into that. That's what I would like to do.
Thank you.
I want to ask him.
Mr. Francis?
Jeff, I think we still have questions. Oh, I do, but, okay. Yeah.
Mr. Bentley?
Yeah. I just have a concern that I haven't been able to get past yet. I'm not sure this council, or the council back then, let me say it that way, would have let anybody inside that park other than Promise for obvious reasons. And now you're asking us to perhaps allow someone in there that's not Promise. And I just don't think we'd ever gotten there back then had it not been Promise asking for that give. And I can't think of something I think would be safe for the city. To me, it just comes down to a financial issue. Obviously, you want to get something out of this investment that you've got. And so I don't know where the city sits on all this, but I'd rather go down that route than the possibility of putting someone in there that we don't have control over, in a sense.
So could I?
Sure, absolutely.
A little bit. So I'm kind of, so we have $1.7 million into that building. We have a net book value of $1.35 million. That was, when I approached city manager, that was the number I was talking about. Okay. That is $150 a square foot. Okay. Now, granted, this is a nice building and with a lot of restrictions in the middle of the park, so it's not going to be worth the market beyond the park. But there is a huge delta between the number that was floated to me, which was under $50 a foot, and the $1.35 million. So, and here's the challenge with us, okay, because we're a nonprofit and we rely on fundraising and grants, and we have an audit every year, okay? In almost every situation for grants and fundraising, I have to supply our audited financial statements, and we have very clean financial statements. But I don't feel like I would be operating in a fiduciary manner for a nonprofit if I agreed to put literally a $1 million loss on my books, and then I go out and ask somebody to give us a grant, and they look at it and they say, holy cow. Now, you could make this argument anyway. What were you guys thinking? And I can't change that at this point. But that's gonna follow us for a couple years on our financial statements, that we suffered $1 million loss from the sale of a building that we know is worth way more outside of the park.
Right. Oh, I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Here we are.
So my pitch is that it's a great deal, and I have always felt like the best owner for that building is the city.
I think my problem, and probably the city's problem, is I don't know what we would do with that thing.
I get that, and I've heard
that. And to give market price for something that we have no use for. We're just trying to make it so that we all get out of this cleanly. We don't want someone there that, as a neighbor in that park, that we don't want. And I'm just trying to find a clean way to get out. And
I get it, and I didn't ask for market price.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Market price is above what we talking about.
Yeah, I know, but we're just sitting with something. I honestly don't know what the city would do with it, honestly.
And I heard that, and that's why I'm here tonight to ask if we can market it. And I might be back. There may be no one who's interested in it, and then I may
but it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't at least try to maximize the value of this asset.
What about getting some kind of agreement with what we would allow there before you go down that process? And before we close it? Does that make sense at all?
I'm close, I don't have a way to operate it right now. I don't have a manager.
Steve will come manage it for you.
Who?
Steve.
But you know what? Hey, I'm
See?
open.
Everybody's
Hey,
open.
Let's have that conversation, but I don't have a manager right now, so that's where I'm at.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm retired.
You know what? I was
Oh, now you have a manager.
Mr. Francis, followed by Ms. Volz.
Quick question. If this doesn't get approved and you don't agree to the city and the city calls you on it, how's that going to look on the books then? I guess it's rhetorical, but,
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Mr. Rohde, if this gets voted on today, it's only a one-vote thing, correct? So it's...
Yeah, it's not a
So
two.
the changes that we discussed, how are we going to implement that before the vote? So we
Yeah,
know
we would
what's
make it,
actually-
we'd make an amendment to the agreement. I think we have a couple things ready that we
So many
could
things we
scribble.
talked about,
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, the big one is obviously the liquor, and then whatever term. I know there's been some discussion about different term would have to be added.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Does it make sense to, I won't say the word table, but to find out a little more detail before we have to do a vote, since it's a single vote, not a, second reading? I don't know that he has support right now, but I don't even know what possibilities to go in there that the city would be okay with.
So just to clarify, you mentioned that because let's say in between this meeting and next meeting, we were able to come up with a list of 10 general uses for the sake of discussion and bring those uses to the next meeting, then members of the council might be favorable of allowing to go dark, knowing that it's these 10 potential uses, or
No, Pat, I'm along with you. I think I wanted Promise to be successful. I don't know that I want somebody else in there. That's my problem. So we have to get
But they're not.
No, it's followed by Ms. Volz. Hold on. Mr.
Yes.
Krampus. Are you finished, Mr. Krampus? All right, Ms. Volz?
Do you have any earthly idea of what you might consider would go in there?
Well, I really would like the opportunity to meet with professionals, having some guidance from the city on what would be acceptable. I mean, I have ideas of what wouldn't be acceptable.
Oh, I think we all do, yeah.
Yeah, so I have some real strong ideas of that, and I have some ideas of what I think would definitely be acceptable, and it's probably the middle part that we would have to kind of discuss so that I understood it. And, to be clear, I know this is our problem. I really understand that. And I'm just, looking for some flexibility, but I'm willing to work within parameters that you all give me. And it would be good to know that before I go, sign a listing agreement with a broker.
Yeah. Well, if we do as Mr. Rohde said, come up with 10 potentials, would you be able to come up with a few and work with him so that maybe at our next council meeting that we could have those particular businesses and vote on it at the next meeting?
I mean, I'm amenable to that. The only thing is, how do I sign a listing agreement without providing them what the list, if I'm really going to go at it, how do I sign a listing agreement with somebody when they don't really know what those?
Well, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just asking you to come up with an idea of a type of business that could go in there, maybe with some information from any council members, from Mr. Rhodey, from John, from anybody else, that maybe, compile a list and come back and at least give you and us a couple of weeks to try to figure it all out, and then go from there. And that would just be my suggestion, that we do that.
Are you pulling this off of the agenda? Are you tabling the item?
And that would be a good idea, yes, I would do that. So I will make a motion that we table this for 2 weeks while we come up with, whether Jeff comes up with, Tim comes up with, we all come up with ideas of what the city staff would potentially not want there or be okay with what would be there. Tim, you don't look like you're too happy with that.
No,
I didn't know you had a
I think Mr. Keel said it good. This is a challenge that Promise has, but this is our park. This is our premier park, and this building is located in our park, so it's.
Yeah. And it should be up to us.
I think this is, while it's a challenge for Promise, this is also a challenge for the city. I was just going to ask, Mayor, if it would be possible to get a consensus from this council, because, we've heard a couple members say that, but for Promise, this wouldn't have been allowed. And what I hear is hesitation towards anybody else but Promise. And what I'm wondering is that a consensus, right? I am happy to go through the effort with Mr. Keel. Maybe we can meet with a broker, get in the same room, and just kind of talk through some potential end users. I'm happy to do that and bring that back to the next council meeting. But if the consensus tonight is the same it will be in 2 weeks, which is, but for Promise,
We wouldn't allow it.
we wouldn't allow this. I think we need to know that tonight. So that's my question.
Hold on. I've got a whole bunch of lights on here. Mr. Rhodey, I didn't even know you had a light.
I've never used this before.
Oh, that was your consensus, okay.
He asked us for it.
Okay.
I just, before we, kind of cart and horse, let's see what the group.
That's certainly where I am, but hold on, I have some lights here. I have some people who want to weigh in. Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, to your point exactly, I was thinking that's why I had my light on. I was on the council when all this was done. I don't know, however many years ago this whole thing
16.
started. I don't believe that council would have allowed anybody but Promise in that park at the time. I'm just being honest. And I don't know that if I had to decide it again today, I think I would make the same decision. I trust you in that organization, and they were part of the fabric of that park. I mean, the naming and everything is all about Promise. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bentley, I hear you. I think this council has a lot of things to consider in terms of what's good for the park. I also think this council does want to support Promise as best we can, because we love having you as part of our community. We see the impact that it has on your residents. So I don't think anybody up here wants to minimize that at all. Just two very different perspectives and responsibilities to carry. With that in mind, just to give Mr. Rhodey my 2 cents as he's asking, I still think it's worth exploring what those potential uses could be, although I would want a more in-depth legal analysis from our city attorney in terms of what our liability would be from the city, regardless of whoever goes there, or if you wanted to brainstorm what those, I would look at more of something like 5 categories, because I'm thinking businesses across 10 is a lot, but that's just my opinion.
I have regretted saying the word 10 several times here in the last couple minutes.
I like the 10 to be.
I hear you. I like 5. But I would, brainstorming that list first, and then I would want the city attorney's legal input in terms of businesses in these categories, how that could be affecting the park and affecting the city. Because hearing the input from people who were there when that decision was made, I definitely see the perspective of Promise was a safe, tenant for the city at the time and currently. However, I know the spot that you're in. So
I was running a newspaper, okay?
So I would want to know what the legalities are that would impact the city, rather than saying, I'm not comfortable with it if I don't have that legal standing. And if the legal advice comes back and says, none of these options are really going to be great for the city, then I think that's a conversation this council has to have. But I would want both of those, pieces of information at the same time.
So we have Ms. McGuire.
Sorry. I will kind of go behind Ms. Adams on that I would be fine looking at, a list of who would be good to kind of go in that space, who we think, agreeing in the sense that they need to be, legally good for
In that parameter.
correct. And then I think it would be good to kind of go from there. Having not been here 9 years ago when this went into play, and not wanting to limit, what you guys can and can't do with your space, I think that would kind of be the best step forward.
All right, so we still have a motion on the floor to table. We do not have it. Mr. Frampus?
It didn't get seconded.
Did not get seconded. That's correct.
I do request that we do what Mr. Rhodey asked and poll the council. That way he knows which way we need to go. And if that poll comes up one way, then we can move forward. And, he asked for that several conversations ago, so maybe we.
Can you repeat what you said?
Just looking for some direction there. There was several comments about, but for Promise, it wouldn't be in the city's park. And so kind of that equates to, really no other use being something that would be amenable to some of the council members. And then there were some comments that, before other council members said before they wanted to make that decision, they would still like to see the list. And so we kind of have a 50-50 battle going on. And so I'm just trying to look for some clarity and only, not only for myself, for Promise, right? If one option is clear to the council, then there's clear direction how to move forward. Because that's what they're looking for. They're looking to move forward. We're, happy to oblige the desire of the council.
Okay, but then I'll be the first to say I'd like to see the list.
You third.
The part where, but for Promise, because Promise goes right hand in hand with Field of Dreams. That was the whole point of building that whole thing, wheelchair accessible. That's where I am.
And I would not have supported anything other than Promise when I made the original vote.
Still just one vote. Still.
Mr. Gaylord, your light is on, but we're just getting a consensus right now. Did you have a direct question for Mr. Kyle?
No, I was giving my consensus.
Oh, you can do that. You can just speak.
Yeah,
With what?
4 for seeing the list and 4 for Promise only. There you go. That's a consensus.
Is that not 8? And do we only have 7?
No,
There's 7 of us. Can't be 4 and 4.
I thought you said 4 and 4. 4 for seeing the list and 4 for...
4 and 3 for just Promise. So.
Okay, all right, so then I think we are still tabling this so that we can
I think
do this
tabling will
list?
be good. We can work with Promise to come up with some end users and work on the
Does
legality.
it have to be tabled, or can it just be brought back? Because
I will defer to an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, it can be continued to the next meeting. One point of clarification I wanted to get, and not to confuse the matter, but there was discussion about the alcohol. That was done through a separate amendment. I can't revoke, for lack of a better term, the alcohol provision through this addendum, which by its own terms is only for the period while they're closed and then has no effect. So I would have to bring a separate instrument in order to revoke that. And I'm not sure if that was part of the consensus to move forward with amending it to remove their ability to sell alcohol or not. And so I need to know when we bring this back, is that going to include an amendment for that purpose?
Ms.
For
Adams?
me, yes.
My personal opinion is yes, I would remove that.
I'm fine either way. Anyone else want to weigh in on it?
The yeses have the majority. So we'll take that, and you guys are fine with that provision being taken out. So.
All right, so Mr. Carey, you said it would only be for the time that they're closed, but we haven't voted that they're going to be closed.
So the addendum that I drafted, by its own terms, is intended only to apply while it's closed. Essentially, it's protection for them so that we won't go after them and assert a right of entry into the property because they closed in violation of the agreement. That's what the addendum does. But then after the 6-month period, or 9 if there's an exercising an extension in order to negotiate with a client, then the addendum basically goes away. It's not a permanent amendment to the agreement. Whereas if we were to amend the agreement to remove the alcohol, that would require an amendment. So I'm just going to ask this because I wanted to know, am I bringing back when if and when this goes on the agenda, is this going to be the addendum plus an amendment to remove their ability to sell alcohol? And it sounds like that is what you all want as a consensus.
It's fine, yes. Anyone else wish to weigh in on this while we're just weighing in on things? All right, so are we tabling or are we just removing?
I think it sounds like we are continuing this to 2 weeks from now to allow us to work with Promise and figure out a list. Yeah.
All right, so continuing, I don't need a second to the motion to table, so we're good with that. Or do I need a motion and a second to continue?
Well, I mean, it's on the agenda, so I think there should be a vote on continuing it to 2 meetings, ideally, or
All right,
excuse me,
so
2 weeks
Ms.
from now.
Volz, do you want to
Yes.
amend instead of table and say to continue?
Yes, I will amend my motion to go ahead and, what was it?
To continue.
To continue this discussion to our next meeting. Is that enough time? 2 weeks? It is? Yes, okay, good.
All right,
Good.
Mr. Gaylord, your light
Yes.
is on. Are you seconding?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any other comments before we put this to bed here? All right, so we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Frempus.
It's procedural, because continuing falls under tabling, so, I mean, we're tabling it.
Yeah, I mean,
Right? I mean-
so the reason I avoid using tabling is because under Robert's rules, laying something on the table means to kill it, basically.
we don't.
I understand that, but then
Rules under
we've had discussions about this before, and it just seems clearer to me what your intention is if you're saying continue it. But if you want to say table it with the understanding that means we bring it back in 2 weeks, that's fine as well.
I only say that because it's clear in our rules of order.
Yes, I understand.
All right, so we have a motion to continue from Ms. Volz, and we have a second from Mr. Gaylord. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. I'm sorry.
We lost. It's against our rules. I'm just saying, it's against our rules. We don't have a continuing in our rules, we just have, I'm okay with tabling it.
So,
2 weeks.
Just
saying.
I would allow Councilmember Volz the opportunity to table it for discussion in 2 weeks, if that's your preferable way of wording that. And I understand, certainly that our procedural rules do use that verbiage. But like I said, a couple of years ago, it caused some confusion because of the Roberts rules and the disparity in the way the word is used. So that's all.
I will make a motion that we table this discussion for 2 weeks.
Mr. Gaylord, do you wish to amend your second?
I'll amend my second to say we table it for 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Volz to table this item for 2 weeks, and we have a second from Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. This motion carries 7-0. We will talk about this again in 2 weeks. All right, thank you. That was easy. All right, so next item is the First Amendment to the license for the city right-of-way for Hollywood Estates. Mr. Rohde.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, I am presenting a new amendment to the licensing agreement for the right-of-way of Hollywood Estates. I don't see Joan Connolly here. So I don't see the HOA representative here, but following the last action of the Hollywood Estates agreement, a new election was held and a new HOA board was put into office. I think members of that group were present at the last discussion of the Hollywood Estates entrance and made their points. Ultimately, the group voted them in, and so the difference between the last group, which wanted natural landscaping and us not to cut, the new group wants landscaping and wants us to cut, which is fine. We've been cutting it for 10 plus years, and so that's not an issue. What we were looking for is a little more consistency. Along with that agreement, or along with those discussions with the new HOA board at Hollywood Estates, they recognize that a lot of the controversy over the years has been in the median strip of the entrance, and sought a desire for us to concrete that. We discussed the option of splitting that 50-50. And ultimately agreed to that and are bringing that forward, obviously, for council action. So this agreement essentially would cost the city $2,500 for the concrete, and then they would pay the other $2,500. The other provision that we did add in and agree to with the HOA is that in the future, if a new HOA board desires to do a different version of landscaping, that the city is then no longer responsible to maintain the entrance, as a way to stop what I jokingly refer to as the back and forth based on the different groups that have been in charge of the HOA over the years. And so this is a case where I am recommending recommending that the city council does adopt this agreement so that we can move forward to some other important business of the city and make the current HOA happy and move on to other business of the city. Happy to entertain any questions.
Mr. Francis.
Thank you, Mayor. I like the agreement. I like the provisions you put in. I hate that you plan on concreting over the median, because I think that's just a play by the new HOA board to finally get rid of that area. I think it's going to look horrible for the residents, and the notion that you can't make those turns. I went in and out of that turn with that area for over 2 years with a 26-foot boat and a full truck and never had a problem getting in there. These kind of things are set up to slow traffic down, not, that's why you put the curves in the road and stuff. It's just to say that we want concrete in there so the trucks can run them over because they can't make the turn is ridiculous. And I know you didn't make that argument, that came from them. But, it's just a ploy to get the grass taken out so nobody can ever change it again. So that's my only problem with this agreement. Thank you.
But it's already done.
Ms. Foltz, followed by Mr. Bentley.
Concrete got put in.
Yeah, concrete's already done.
Yes, it's there.
Long story.
Yeah,
One.
they did it.
Why is it being presented to us like it's not done?
So this is the agreement. In between the agreement, putting this together, and this meeting, the concrete got done. The concrete got done by mistake, but is very happily accepted by the HOA.
Ms. Foltz, are you
Yeah,
You still
no,
have the floor.
Actually, it looks good, and you might not have had an issue, but because I'm short, and when I come up over that hump, I had a problem seeing any of that stuff. So, no, I think it looks much better now than it did before.
Doesn't matter, we don't have a choice.
I know.
Well, but yeah, in that, whether the concrete's there or not, I mean, the agreement is the important part here. I am upset that the concrete is there, but the concrete is there, and I certainly can't go and take it out. Well, I mean, we could go and take it out, but
On our land.
that,
Well, isn't this like the second time concrete got put in and didn't follow proper authorization? I mean, who pulled
No,
the
not-
triggers?
not concrete, no.
All the concrete,
The asphalt at the,
that goes.
Oh, that was
sidewalk
concrete.
got put in when it
concrete at the park.
Okay, Mr. Bentley, followed by Mr. Gaylord.
Thank you. Do we not need a permit to put in concrete like that? Or do they not need a permit?
No permit needed, not to fill a concrete median.
Well, even though this may all be a moot point, I was going to make my point anyway. I would like to see the city out of this business of owning that property, and we don't do it for any other neighborhood in West Melbourne. I do understand why we're doing it for them, but I don't want to do it anymore. I was going to say, I don't think we should have to match the price, or $2,500. If I would like to see them, if they want a concrete, I think they should have paid for it. And they've just been kind of running us around, I think, a little bit over the years, not this one time. Every time they've got a different council, they want to do something different. So I know that you've put in here a clause that says, well, if they try it one more time, we're not going to agree to it. But I would like, since they've already done the concrete, just give it to them and say, we're no longer responsible.
They do it, or did we do it?
It was a city contractor.
Oh,
That's what I was having a problem.
God almighty. I got nothing to say.
I'm glad we have that on record.
I want to give it to them and be done with it.
Yeah, but it's our road.
The challenge is the right-of-way, unlike any other subdivision entrance or neighborhood entrance. The city purchased this entrance to make this entrance, and so the city retained ownership when they did that back in 2009. So unlike other entrances that HOAs or developers come and they propose and they keep it as the common space or they keep it as their space, this particular one we own. This is our land, our entrance.
We own the interior roads too, right?
The interior roads are public roads, but the actual two parcels that make up this entrance, the city purchased and owned and retained.
Okay, we do not have any lights on. And we're looking for a motion and a second to move on with this item.
Okay, what needs to be the motion to accept it? Approve the first, okay, approve the new First Amendment to the license for the use of the city right-of-way for Hollywood Estates. I will make that motion, as long as they pay the other $2,500.
It's already done.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Volz, and that's all we have. We have a motion from Ms. Volz.
They're writing us a check for $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
Did they agree to that already?
Ms. Adams. Is this a second?
I don't think I can ask a question without a second.
Yeah, we need a second. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
Okay.
Damage is done.
Ms. Adams, your question.
Do we have any other option, being as the concrete's already in?
Well,
I feel like it's rhetorical, but I have to ask.
Yeah. The unfortunate part of the concrete is being discussed, but really what this is an agreement to try to concrete, if you will, to use a pun on something that's been a source of frustration. We are trying to concrete this relationship in better language than what we had originally. And so we're trying to put some parameters, we're trying to identify the areas of discussion so that we know what we're talking about with them as they continue to change over boards. Ultimately, what we'd like to do is get out of the business of maintaining this one entrance. And so in the future, if they want to go more natural or they want to do some different landscaping, that's up to them. But then the maintenance is on theirs and the city's not responsible anymore.
Is there any other changes they could attempt to make or ask the city to make other than what is currently included in what you're proposing?
They could, and they have in the past, and I mean, within the last year and a half, they've gone natural and wanted to put different plantings in.
Right, I mean, other than natural versus concrete, other than that category, is there anything else that they can then come back and forth, and we're still going to have a back and forth?
No, I think we have written this to solve this problem once and for all.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Foltz and a second from Mr. Bentley. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. If you don't say nay, you've said aye. So motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's move on to the next item here. 8C, Enterprise Resource Planning System Update. Mr. Bradford.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. So this is something we've been looking at for a couple of years. It's included in our CIP plan, and we have budgeted in the FY26 fiscal year an amount of $300,000 to perform this upgrade. So this will take a system that we've been using for 10 years and migrate it to their cloud platform. One nice thing about this is that many of the screens in the new platform are designed out of the gate to look similar and function similar to what our staff is used to today, but with a much more modern interface and more functionality for automation, and they're starting to wrap some AI technology into the new platform as well. They are also adding some functionality that will allow better integration with third-party products, which can be challenging today. So with the new platform, they're building what's called an API that will allow this software platform to communicate with other software platforms. So that's something we're looking forward to as well. In addition, being web-based, we're able to utilize tablets and smartphones. There'll be an app coming out in 2026 to assist with field inspection. And so what we're asking for this evening is your authorization to allow the city manager to execute an agreement with our current provider, but for the upgrade to the platform in the amount of $226,835. This does incorporate implementation and training and data migration. And so we're asking for an additional approval of up to $50,000 in travel for them to come on site. The way this typically works is kind of a hybrid of both remote work and then sending people here for doing the implementation and training, particularly through Go Live. So that is our request, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Frampus, you have a question?
I do. We bid this out in 2014 for this software package. First of all, let me just be clear. What is the software?
So this system handles, it's about a dozen different modules that handle a variety of different things for the city. So it's the core financials. So that's general ledger, accounts payable, purchase order, cash receipting, fixed assets, miscellaneous receivables, also HR, payroll, handles all of our utility billing and work orders for field work orders so that When there's an issue in utility billing, maybe there's a high water usage and they need to request that somebody go take a look at that particular property. A work order will go in from utility billing, makes it out to the field crew services that out in the field, completes that work order, it comes back to utility billing to finalize that process. Also inspection, and so building inspection and permitting goes through the system. And so it's really kind of a wide range of things across the organization.
So it's $250,000. What other software bids?
Sure. Yeah. So we did survey. So we use, as you know, we use DemandStar for a lot of our capital projects going out to bid. So we looked at that system to get sort of a feel for what the current market is and what the costs are. So we found across several different customers, some in Florida, some not in Florida, some recent bid prices for doing similar systems. If we were to try to transition to some other software platform, could easily be 3 to 4 times this cost. It wouldn't surprise me if we were to go down that path and see, north of $1 million to migrate to some other platform. But because we're migrating from this company to their new software, it's much lower because they're migrating from databases that they're familiar with to databases they're familiar with. And the implementation and training will be lower because, again, the system is designed so that it's easier to transition customers so that there's less training required. Obviously, it's a more modern interface, and you can search and automate things and create more custom reports, automate exports for sending data outside the system. So there's more features and functionality that come with the new platform, but it's designed sort of out of the gate that it's an easier transition for existing customers.
I'm glad you brought up training because that was my next question. We're talking about $60,950 for 46 days worth of training. Is there no value in having a trainer and we train our own staff? I mean, and that doesn't include the $50,000 in travel time that we're talking about bringing staff down.
And that's a worst case scenario, and we may not use that amount. That was sort of a worst case scenario number, and ideally we won't use all that, and then that would just stay with the city. But we didn't want to.
But that doesn't include the training days numbers in here because that's included in the $226,000 price, not the $50,000 additional. So
right, the travel is just the airfare, hotels, meals.
But the training
expenses.
is included.
The training is
in the package price.
It is in the package price, yes. But the travel time, the hotels and airfare and all that is the $50,000.
So it wouldn't pay us to send somebody and learn the program.
I think what we've learned in the past is that people really like to have someone standing over their shoulder, especially during go live, and so it really helps sort of ease that level of anxiety when you're changing systems. Even though this is less of a change than it might otherwise be, people still get a little bit nervous when you're changing systems, and so I think that we wouldn't want to reduce the training.
Price, not including it's almost 40% of the price. Not including the $50,000. So I was shocked by, $226,000 and $72,000 of it is in training. That seems like it's a high bar. Just upgrade it to a cloud.
So that's implementation and training. Excuse me. So that's like
this just says training under training days for $60,950. That's under training days. Setup days is a different cost.
Okay, right, I see what you're saying.
It just seems like for a cloud service that mimics what we're already using, in your words, why so much in the additional?
Yeah, and I think part of the process, and any time you're going to transition to a new system, even though the look and the feel kind of out of the gate, the screens are designed to look similar so you don't have to go hunting around to find what you're looking for. You're still reviewing your process at the same time. So we're going to be migrating data. Could vary depending on the module, how much data we bring, how many years worth of data we bring. But obviously we'll make sure we're meeting records retention and all that for what data we migrate. But what happens oftentimes during this training time is looking and reviewing your processes and procedures and seeing if there's any additional functionality that the new system brings that we could eliminate or streamline processes. And so part of that gets wrapped in.
So as far as the training, 46-day training days, is that online training or is that in-person training?
So that's kind of up to us to work out with them as far as what we believe is necessary to have them on site. And that's where that allocation of the 50 comes in, is if we determine that fewer travel days are necessary and that we can do some virtual training to reduce the cost, we certainly will. But if there are times like the Go Live, when we really want to have some boots on the ground to help with that, then that's where we would, ask them to be here.
We're getting charged for 46 days of training days. Basically, you're telling me none of that is in person unless we bring a trainer down and.
So something that is not included in this is actually the one of the implementation team members that was here when we first implemented 9 years ago has committed to come on site as well. So he has, and it's not included in this, that's sort of free ahead of the time, coming on site to help try to get some of those processes down to make the process smoother. So we actually get some additional days that are above and beyond what's in here. But I wouldn't want to reduce the training.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frampus. Any other questions on this item? All right, we're looking for a motion and a second on this item. What's the wishes of the council? Mr. Bentley?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we support this effort and authorize the city manager to purchase this.
All right, thank you. We have a motion.
$226,835.
Thank you. I'm looking for a second. Ms. McGuire?
Does that motion include the 50,000 or not? That's different.
It was 226?
Yes, sir. Our recommendation is the $226,835 plus approval for up to $50,000 in travel.
For the training, yes. My motion includes the travel, or the training.
Ms. McGuire?
Thank you, Mayor. I will second.
All right, thank you. We have no more questions. Ms. Adams?
But if that training is not required, you're saying that number could then go down?
Correct.
But we won't know what that is. You're not even willing to ballpark that in terms of seeing, since you're the most, I would think, familiar with that system.
I don't know that we're going to know the extent of how much we would prefer to have them on site versus what could be done virtually until we kind of get into it. And so that's why we're asking for approval to do that. We've budgeted this year, even with that 50 is within the amount that we had allocated in the budget for this. But we certainly are always looking to try to save money. And if there's a chance we can, we certainly will.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Bentley and a second from Ms. McGuire. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is a land transfer agreement, deed, and easement that we're requesting with St. John's Water Management District. Currently, the St. John's River Water Management District owns the parcel at roughly where you would think of as the end of Coastal Lane on the north end. That is not currently a right-of-way. However, as you can see by the overhead there, it kind of looks and acts like a right-of-way. This agreement would essentially would ask you to enter into an interlocal agreement between the district and West Melbourne for us to take control of this as right-of-way. It includes a quitclaim deed, which again is a deed that is pretty typical for something like this when you're not purchasing it. It's not a warranty deed. It's basically an as-is deed. And non-perpetual permanent, non-exclusive perpetual access agreement, which allows St. John's to enter the canal the property and use it for their purpose. And ultimately, as you know, their purpose is to serve their canals and their water system. And it also includes a cooperative agreement over the canal. These four documents together essentially maintain the status quo operationally. It allows the utilities, and there are several utilities that have utilities in that area, to continue using them, but it also puts it in the hands of the city in terms of ownership and allows the city to create right-of-way. Ultimately, if the property to the north wanted to pave the road under city standards to allow them access to develop that property, this would allow them to do so, subject to the easements. And the next slide, as you'll see, so before we go to the next slide, this slide shows kind of where our utilities are, the water and the sewer connections. We don't have the GIS for the other utilities, but City of Melbourne, the Water Management District, obviously, as well as FP&L, all have utilities in that parcel. And if you go to the next one.
Are those water mains there Melbourne's?
We have water and West Melbourne and Melbourne water and sewer there.
The fenced-in area that...
No. So part of the fenced-in area is over here. What we're saying is that, let me go back to this one here.
Not depicted very well in the pictures, but I took a ride out there today in a large area with a bunch of water mains out there, and I'm wondering who owns them.
So when you say water mains, there's City of West Melbourne water mains, and that's what we showed on here with the blue. And then the red lines are our sewer lines.
Above-ground pipes that are coming.
And there's also St. John's is doing that rediversion of the M1 canal going westbound. Now, in addition to that, somewhere in the proximity of the blue lines, or blue and red lines, is the City of Melbourne has a set of water and sewer lines. And so that's why this area is congested with a lot of utilities and actions happening in it. And that's why it would be better to not have something that's not part of a right-of-way, because you also have Florida Gas.
That's St. John's?
Right, that's going east-west. Is that what the lines were, Mr. Rhodey? Okay. Right.
But isn't that part of the property?
Do you see this where it says the 18-inch or 16-inch PVC? The St. John's is moving water. Remember, it's this rediversion, and they're here, by the way, from about where, yeah, they've stayed this long, from about where the ball is. Instead of going east towards the Indian River Lagoon, it's going west towards a wetland. So it goes over the interstate. So remember, on the west side of that wet pond that you see on the screen, there's the interstate, and then you have their lines continuing west into a big wetland area. So yes, in the same proximity as our east-west 16-inch line, there is what you observed.
It's a large concreted-in area. I'm just curious.
Absolutely, and that's part of St. John's. But that's why they also have said that there are, see all these dash lines here? That there are areas that they need to have easements so that their assets are still protected, so that they're still able to access it.
That was another question I had on the assets. They have a large area to get down into the water, some bulkhead areas there, some riprap there. I mean, is that?
We're going to have.
That doesn't transfer with the property then?
No, that remains under their control. So Mark, do you want to describe a little bit about what types of facilities you have above ground and underground? I think that's the question.
Sure. My name is Mark Van Hayden with St. John's River Water Management District, supervising professional engineer. So what you saw, that big structure there, is an intake structure. So the overall project, it takes water from the M1 canal there, and through gravity, it goes into that structure. And there's a gravity pipe that brings it into a pump station, which is under construction in this picture here. So that pump station is 340 horsepower pumps, just like a lift station. It's a wet well. And then the water is pumped through a 24-inch force main, goes under I-95 into a stormwater pond.
And honestly, my only concern is we're not responsible for any of it, and the cost doesn't come back to the city in any way by us taking over this property. I saw a lot of money invested over there, and I don't want to be responsible for it. If it's just us getting the road, I'm for it. If not, I don't want the responsibility of anything over there.
Right, and that's, honestly, this is, we're here in support of the project, but, you know, it's, this is something that the city requested when we were getting site development plans, so it makes sense to have, you know, there's
Yeah, the answer is we're not taking any of their facilities, we're taking the dirt, and they have an access agreement through an easement so that they can continue to operate their facilities. The shaded area is what we're taking, and I think what you're looking at is off to the left there, correct?
Well, it's part of the shaded area as well, and it's right up against that lake bank where the north area there, where
So all this agreement does is it allows us to take the dirt. There are no facilities that are included in this. We're not.
I thought you mentioned it in the thing about the stairways and everything that was in the documents we're reading here.
Right, so the land you would own, it would be right-of-way, and then there's an easement that the district would be able to access and maintain our facilities that are there. And then in addition, so overall, it's a 1.15 acre parcel. And then out of that, the district is going to retain about half an acre of that where our pump station is.
But as far as the facilities there,
And then
if something happens to the steps, who fixes it?
So we would, the water management district would fix those.
That's what I'm, thank you.
Yeah, as you see when we do the bills of sale for new developments, you know, in order for them to transfer their facilities, it would require a bill of sale that we would have to accept. This is only for the land. They would continue to maintain all of their facilities that are over it, and they have access, obviously, through the easement.
How's the business back there that's currently there been crossing all these years?
Because I don't think St. John's excludes them from using it, but.
They just have been doing it.
Right.
Just to answer your question, they just have been.
Certainly, St. John's could exercise their property rights and.
A junkyard or something like that. There's all kinds of.
Please don't say that. Please don't say it's a junkyard.
I mean, there's 50 vehicles back there.
There are. I agree with you. And those uses, sometimes we've gone through code enforcement cases, so I think it was in 2015. There was a code enforcement case that required moving some of the materials that were on that property out of the city.
We should relook at it.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that again.
Right, and there is, I mean, this corrects an encroachment. There's a city right-of-way just to the east of our parcel, and so, but the road goes into the district lane there.
Yeah, the right-of-way that we have is through this area, and it's actually sort of ends here.
Well, if you go to the next slide.
If we have the canal.
And then the 40 feet.
I know, we have the canal, which is what you're saying here. There was a lot of discussion back and forth between the county surveyor and our team. So it's technically called canal right-of-way in that area, that 40 feet that's just east of yours. That's why this becomes so valuable to the city. It's not going to be labeled canal right-of-way.
Any other questions on this item? Have any other comments? I have no lights on. What are the wishes of the council? This is the subdivision that's here. Is that the new townhouses? The subdivision on the right?
No, that's what was the Oasis. I think it's called the Azalea Apartments, so just market rate apartments.
Okay.
That's what this is.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, Christy. I don't even know if you were finished.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if you were finished or not with your presentation. I just had a question.
That's okay. That was a.
That's the gist of it.
Yep.
It's awfully quiet in here. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Rhodey, what's your opinion? I know you so much like to give it.
Yeah, I'm doing well on opinions tonight. This is a very important item for us. What it's trying to do is true up essentially where that road that is in use then will now become city right-of-way in case that road ever goes north, right? So at some point in time, those parcels, the one that's in a little disarray, and then the parcels north of that that are in between the canal and the freeway, which if this picture were to be able to go north, will keep the city having access to that area and be able to put a city road in at some point. And so this is an important item for us to get under our ownership so that we can help control it. I think St. John's has been a really good partner with this and working, and it's your classic infill challenge where I think St. John's wishes they had about 5 acres to do all this work in, and unfortunately they got about 5 feet. And so, you know, we're now that they're in and they're established, I know the team has been working with St. John's, and Chrissy's done a good job to try to true up and represent where that road actually is so that we do have as much land as possible. So at one point in time when the road goes north, it can fish hook a little bit and continue up north.
Mr. Frampus.
But we didn't put the road in yet, right?
The road dies. Yeah, the road, it goes gravel.
Based on your opinion solely, I make a motion we approve the city manager to execute the following 4 bullet points on this request.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord.
I'll second.
And just to be perfectly clear, this does have to go to the St. Johns River Water Management Board, and it will go next month. I believe the date is December 9th. And so this won't be formally approved until their board approves it. But in order for them to approve it, they need us to approve it first.
Your motion, did you say 4 bullet points?
Isn't there 4 there?
Yes, there are 4 agreements that need to be executed.
Not 3, but 4. So your motion is with all 4, with all of the bullet points. All of the bullet points. Okay. And we have a motion from Mr. Frampus, and we have a second from Mr. Gaylord. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right. Thank you. Annual review of city attorney's performance. Ms. Curran.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members.
Good evening.
Good evening. So our city attorney, Mr. John Carey, was appointed as the City of West Melbourne city attorney effective on November 29 of 2022, as required by his employment agreement. The City Council is tasked with evaluating his performance each year. Evaluation responses were received from each council member and compiled into a summary document that was included with your staff report. Mr. Carey's overall score averaged a 3.92 out of 5, which generally meets or exceeds performance standards. I'm requesting a motion to accept the summary document, and thereafter, if the City Council chooses to discuss Mr. Carey's performance and or a salary increase.
All right, thank you. Comments? Mr. Bentley.
I would make a motion, that's what you were looking for? Yes, sir. That we accept the annual review of the city attorney.
All right, thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Bentley. Ms. Adams?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Bentley and a second from Ms. Adams. All those in favor of accepting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Bentley?
Are we looking at the second half now, Mayor?
Yes, we are.
So I kind of went through and did 4 or 5 calculations to show kind of where I thought it should come out to. Mr. Brody, I think we did 3.5%. Am I correct for the city employees this year as average?
Average 3.5, sir.
Thank you. So with that information, and then I looked at where he was in the pay band and where he's low from a midpoint perspective. So I would make a recommendation that we give him a 4% review, which would take his salary to $174,643.
All right. Mr. Frampus?
Second.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Bentley, and we have a second from Mr. Frampus to give Mr. Carey a 4% raise on his contract. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Karam. All right, council reports. Mr. Bentley.
Thank you. I just have one thing I would mention in case it ever happens again, although I think it only happens like every 10 or 15 years. I did go to the farm event, and I wasn't expecting to have a good time, but I had a good time. Those guys out to the west of us, there's two farms. One's privately owned and the other's publicly owned, public company. The tour went from something on the order of 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They fed us lunch. As you would think, it was a hamburger, right, with the cows out there. Poor cow. But we learned a lot. We learned the size of the ranches. We learned how we're one of the leading areas for cattle in the state of Florida and in some places throughout the United States. I mean, they do a lot of work out there. They sell cattle, they sell sod, and other things. So the family business is really working hard to keep it alive. They have on the order of 40 employees, most of them all family members. The other one's quite large, has over 100 people working there. But if you ever get a chance again, they say they only do it once or twice in a lifetime. So if you get the second time, go out and see the tour. It's really nice. They do a bang-up effort, and you'll learn a lot. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gaylord.
Hi, I just wanted to say I attended the St. Francis Hospice event at Sunflower for Veterans Day, and we did a brief overview of a soldier's service from World War I, and that was just a great event. We had a couple veterans there giving overviews of their service and their time in the military. So just wanted to say that I really appreciated that, and I just wanted to say I thank all of our men and women that are serving and all those that are retired. And secondly, I wanted to congratulate Councilmember Adams on her adoption today. That event was very well attended, and it seemed like a very happy moment for her and Josh. So just wanted to say congratulations.
All right, thank you. Ms. McGuire.
Keep it easy, no report tonight.
Report, okay. Mr. Frampus.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mr. Rhodey, I'd like to formally request a report on the concrete debacle, how that got approved before it came to council for approval, and what disciplinary actions being taken to the employee that authorized it. So, can you do that for us?
Happy to look into the matter.
Wait, you don't know?
I'm happy to look into the matter.
And please feel free to email that information to us. Thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Frampus? All right, thank you. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple things that I've done since the last meeting, but in reality, I'd probably just like to highlight one of them. 6 of the 7 members of this council attended National Adoption Day.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead and cry. You're entitled to it.
No, I thought I was good. I made notes, so I think I'm just going to stick to my notes.
All right, Ms. Volz.
I'm going to stick to my notes. We're
all right.
good.
We can come back to
I thought I could wing it. I can't. I didn't cry today, so that was a big deal. Your presence meant a lot. Thanks. Your presence meant a lot to the 15 families that adopted from foster care today. Sorry. Especially to my husband and I.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it together.
Why?
Because we're in a public professional meeting, I'm doing my best. It just meant a lot to me that you guys showed up as we adopted our son. A couple of you have asked about whether we're going to continue to serve as foster parents, so I wanted to share that we will. I think it's been one of the hardest things that we've ever done, but potentially, I think, the most impactful thing. And so it's part of the reason that I wanted to bring it up in my council report tonight. Because personal things are personal and don't necessarily need to be brought up on this dais. But I also wanted to share, for those that didn't know, that Brevard County currently has less than 80 foster families. There's more than 300 kids in foster care. And we have multiple children hoping to be adopted. So I chose to bring that up tonight because not only did I want to thank you, but I also wanted to share with you guys and with the public that if you know of people that are interested in learning more about fostering or adoption, the local agency that's here in Brevard County is Family Partnerships of Central Florida. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Wiltz.
Yes. And I do want to say congratulations to you. That is a huge undertaking, and you'll be awesome, Mom. Awesome, Mom. I did also go on that farm tour, and we almost saw a baby cow being born. Half of it was out, and they said, well, we can't stay here an hour and wait for the finished product, but we really wanted to stay, but they said, no, we couldn't. But you're right, Pat, we learned so much about what they do out there and how important it is, and just incredible. I did attend the Hollywood Estates Veterans Day event, which was very, very nice. And then I've got an issue that, Chief, I don't know whether you might be able to give me some direction on this. One of my neighbors has, well, we live by the school, and there's a lot of kids that kind of hang out waiting for their parents to pick them up. Cars sometimes are just everywhere there, and as many times as people have complained, they still go there. But somebody has put old food boxes stuffed in her mailbox, like with old food in it, so that the mailman had to leave her mail in the other person's mailbox. And they also put either honey or something sweet to attract red ants. And her neighbor had to clean it all out. She said it happened last year several times, and now it's starting to happen again. She doesn't have a camera at all, and I don't know if we have like a camera we could do something.
How about I get with you offline and we discuss it and
Okay.
Get all the specifics and how we can help address it. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to get out there and
All righty.
find out who's doing it.
Because she's just afraid of what she might open her mailbox and find. So, okay,
I'll work with you on that.
perfect, thank you. And that's all.
That's all? All right, thank you, Helen. Thank you, Chief. So I also had a very, very busy week. It was Veterans Day, And it was also the 250th birthday for the Marines. So on the 10th, I went over to the VFW for the 250th birthday celebration, and it was terrific. There were just Marines everywhere. They gave them lobster and prime rib and shrimp and just everything that a Marine could possibly want, or anybody else for that matter. So it was a wonderful event. Then the next day, for the actual Veterans Day itself, we went to Buena Vista. They had a wonderful event there. It was very, very successful. I did go to Hollywood Estates, Helen, but by the time I got there was only 2 people left. So I did not make it there in time, but it was a really great event. Sunday, TPO had an event for Vision Zero. It was a World Remembrance, Day of Remembrance, and it was remembrance for the people who have been lost due to car accidents. And a list of about 30 people were read. The oldest one on there was from 1950, and the most recent was within the last 90 days. It was just July 10th. In fact, you may have heard there was a white ghost bike out there where it happened. A 93-year-old person ran over an 80-year-old person, and the 80-year-old person on the bike didn't do so well. So it was a solemn event, and it was, again, it was very, very well done. TPO, hats off to them. They did a great job. Leah is the one who put that together out there. I also went to the adoption today. That was a great event. Those kids and those families were just so happy to be together. It was really, I can see why you do that. It was really, really fulfilling for the parents and things that were there. So that was my week. Any other comments? We're going to move to management reports. Any other thing else before we move to management? All right, Mr. Rohde.
Just one comment. Congratulations to the new Adams family. Good luck.
That's it? Okay, no Pugsley or Wednesday to come? Okay. Mr. Carey.
Well, I can't believe it's been 3 years. Thank you all so much for the reviews. I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you to Councilmember Adams for inviting me. It was a really touching, moving ceremony. I have a heart for adoption myself, as you know, as an adoptive father, and I will certainly think long and hard about your admonition about fostering. So, thanks.
That's it. Okay. All right. Any other comments for the good of the order? So we will adjourn, and we'll see you here in 2 weeks. Thank you. At 9:00.